Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Iron Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Was Most Terrifying Student. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku still can't quite believe that this is happening right now. In front of him, the gigantic building that is the main part of UA High towers mighty into the sky. So far into the clouds in fact that he has to crane his head when he wants to look at the whole thing. God, this really is actually somehow happening. His knees shiver when he tentatively walks towards the entrance. He hasn't thought he'd pass in all honesty. When the exam was announced, he'd immediately thought to himself, well, F-. As a rule, no weapons, apart from already illegal ones, were prohibited from being used against robots, sure. But a baseball bat and a frying pan can only do so much. To be frank, it was astounding that Izuku had even managed to gather 18 combat points before his weapons completely gave up on him. Then his helper syndrome had kicked in after a round of excessive mental language expression. And well, if there's one thing Midoriya Izuku is good at, it's poking his head into other people's businesses. Thus, the 15-year-old had managed to obtain 60 rescue points, rocketing his score up to whopping 78 points in total. Not only has he landed himself a place in UA, his dream school, the one he's wanted to be enrolled at ever since he'd first learned about it when he was 9, no, he also completely blew up his own expectations and came out of that exam in first place. Izuku draws in a deep breath and steadies himself before he enters the facility. Promptly he finds himself lost, but after asking Present Mike, "Oh Demon, it's really the pro hero himself." Where his classroom is located, Izuku soon spots the huge but metal door with the stylized font depicting 1A on it. That's it. In this room are going to be all of his future classmates. He hopes they aren't going to be ignoring him like the ones in middle school. Albeit it's considerably better to be ignored than to be hated, the teenager muses. Well, there goes nothing. After opening the door, Izuku can't help but wish he could just go back to not knowing what his classmates are like. The first thing he notices is a girl who rubs herself against 4 boys at the same time. Okay? Then there are 5 guys who are already trying to tear each other's heads off, which is not something he'd ever thought to find at a hero school on the very first day. A girl with vacant eyes doodles on school property, and next to her another one nervously keeps biting her bottom lip while looking around in fear. Both of them have black hair and look fairly similar to each other. Maybe they're twins. Some students are fixated on their phones. They didn't look up when he came in and, "You're in the way, loser." Oh wow, the blackboard doesn't taste too well. Izuku steps away from said board and hastily swipes chalk away from his mouth. He turns to see 2 boys, one who has pushed him pretty harshly, the one with the big hands most likely, and a girl with bushy gray tail trot into the room. They don't spare him or any of the others a single glance and plop down on 3 unoccupied seats. Izuku feels the hairs on his neck rise and focuses on the door again where, to his utter confusion, a man in a sleeping bag watches the scene with the most "I'm done" mimic he's ever seen. Midoriya throws a glance at the clock. 5 minutes until their teacher should arrive. Perhaps this man is the teacher. He decides to don him a respectful nod and try to solve some of the problems he sees. As mentioned previously, Izuku likes to stumble into people's businesses. First of all, he goes to the 5 guys who are still fighting. "I'm sorry," he asks, as polite as he can. 2 muster him and, apparently, don't think he should be noticed at all. Another one, however, one with blue skin and shrill neon orange hair, doesn't like Izuku's input, doesn't matter how small it is, and growls, "Who do you think you are, shrimp?" Izuku has grown a bit over the holidays. The green-haired boy replies, "I'm Midoriya Izuku. And I'm pretty sure about it. So, you know, I'm not just thinking I'm Midoriya Izuku. I know for a fact that I am." "Ho," says a boy with dog ears, "that's rich. Motherfucker thinks he's a smartass, doesn't he?" "Heh, yeah, smartass." Another one, this time someone who seems to be half-melted, parrots dumbly and immediately breaks out laughing afterwards. Izuku doesn't quite know what to say to that. Honestly, if it weren't for the caterpillar man deciding to roll into the classroom, he would have probably just silently walked away. He's not one to judge easily, but he can tell those 5 wouldn't listen to any form of reasoning. Caterpillar Man, however, does decide to roll into the room, and a quick check at the clock affirms Midoriya's suspicion. It's their homeroom teacher. "I'm Aizawa Sho." He halts when he picks up on the faint squeaking noise near the teacher's desk. He sheaths the sleeping bag from his body, and tendrils of capture cloth pick up one of the twins. It's the girl who's been drawing little flowers with permanent marker onto random wooden surfaces. Her vacant eyes suddenly fill with life when the teacher sends a literal death glare to the other twin. Ryakin Roru, quirk, control. Why do you make your sister violate school rules? The permanent marker slips out of the captured girl's fingers. Izuku can tell she's truly shocked at the revelation and throws an accusing glance at Roru. Said girl grits her teeth in anger. "I don't want to have Setsu in my class. It's my dream, you hear? She doesn't have the right to become famous like me." Izuku's half-melted classmate, who stands next to him, begins snickering under his breath at the dramatic scene. Aizawa-sensei rubs his nose bridge, letting his quirk, "Oh my god, we have Eraserhead as our homeroom teacher." Izuku internally squeals. Fade and levels Roru with a beat-surreal gaze. Then he sighs and states in the most deadpan voice Izuku has ever heard, "You don't have the right to become famous if you go around abusing your quirk. Also, you're expelled." "I'm what?" "You can't do that, it's literally the first day." "You didn't even see what I can do with my quirk," the girl roars, every bit of her nervous exterior vanishing in less than a second after their teacher's exclamation. "I can, I will, and I've seen enough. Now get out." Thus, the first student goes, leaving the classroom in a state of rage and despair. The second one is quick to follow and surprises Izuku a bit. Ryakin Setsu, awfully quiet and obviously holding back tears, is gently placed on the floor, capture weapon falling limp onto Aizawa-sensei's shoulders. Setsu bites her lip and takes Roru's and her bags. She turns to Eraserhead and bows, saying, "I'm deeply sorry for causing such an inconvenience, but I actually just wanted to become a hero to support my sister." Another sigh forces itself out of Aizawa's mouth. "Alright, please go to the secretary to sign out of your enrollment. Anyone else want to quit right now?" The rest of the class shakes their heads in disagreement. "Good," Aizawa-sensei continues when Setsu's out of the room. "As I was saying, my name is Aizawa Shoyuda and I'm your homeroom teacher. Wear these." He throws UA sport uniforms onto the desk, "and then we'll evaluate your skills outside." Skills? Izuku thinks, confused at the choice of words. Normally, any other teacher would have probably called it a quirk test. In UA, just as in every other hero school, pupils are required to have their quirks considered by grown heroes before tuition begins. He's read that in a magazine interview about Shiketsu. Actually, he'd bought the thing for the 4-page-long article on Sir Night Eye, who was a huge influence in little 7-year-old Midoriya's life. So why would their homeroom teacher call it a skill evaluation? Is it because of him? Or maybe, perhaps? "Quit muttering, you freak," hisses the blue-skinned boy who coincidentally stands next to him in the changing room. Izuku shuts up, feeling his cheeks heat up. This verbal tick of his is such a nuisance sometimes. "Ha, yeah, you freak," laughs Mr. Half-Melt, elbowing Izuku, admittedly rather gently, in his naked ribs. Izuku wonders what he did to deserve seemingly yet another 3 years of general dislike. Is it his hair, his plain looks? The muttering, perhaps? His interference earlier? He honestly doesn't see the reason why. They don't know he's quirkless yet, so that can't be it. He changes quickly. For a few seconds he's relieved no one's staring at the bluish-yellow mottled parts of his skin, a result of having weekly park hours, martial arts and football training, and trots out of the locker and onto the field. Izuku's the first one, standing quite unsure next to his teacher, who grows more and more done as time progresses. Where the hell are his classmates? He'd have understood if there were even a steady trickle of incomers, but nobody, neither girl nor boy, appears for quite a while. Aizawa-sensei motions him to stay put and walks towards the changing rooms. In the meantime, without an awkward air between teacher and student, Izuku looks around the facility in awe. This is UA and one can sure see it. The largeness of this single field alone makes the teen jittery with enthusiasm. He's finally able to put actions behind his dreams and words. And with Eraserhead as his sensei, a hero who has to rely on his own physical prowess in fights, he feels so ready to start. Izuku's grin is small and just large enough for it to even count as such as he paces leisurely back and forth, enjoying the wind ruffling gently through his hair. Aizawa-sensei comes back with exactly 7 pupils. Izuku neither sees the girl who's rubbed herself on the boys nor said boys nor the 5 guys who were involved in the fight when he entered one as classroom. Alright? The smile slips off his face as he analyzes the situation. Has Aizawa-sensei expelled all of them? But isn't that a bit harsh? Well, Aizawa-sensei probably has his reasons. He'd just like to actually know them, is all. We are here for a skill evaluation. It's skill evaluation and not quirk evaluation due to the fact that one of you doesn't have a quirk. What? The girl with the bushy tail gasps and a disgusted look flashes over her pretty features. How can a freak like that be admitted into UA? Izuku inwardly recoils at her insulting tone. He swallows down the need to justify his presence. The first and only time he's tried to do that hadn't ended well. The scraggly man's eyes lie on her instantly. In a calm voice he asks, "Can you explain your dislike for quirkless people?" Confusion spreads over the girl's visage. This way, she seems really cute in Izuku's humble opinion. They're not even people, honestly. Eraserhead nods. Is there anyone else who thinks like that? I just want to know, maybe I can do something about your discomfort. Raise your hand if you think quirkless means worthless. Tears slowly gather in Izuku's eyes when every single remaining classmate of his raises their arms. Is he really so revolting? He'd really thought. Good, then let me tell you something. This boy here, Aizawa-sensei points at Izuku who wants to sink into the floor, is said quirkless student. His name is Midoriya Izuku and he scored first at the entrance exam in both written and physical tests. He's more cut out to become a hero than any of you at this moment despite being quirkless. If I hadn't seen an underage student stripping today, I would maybe be more lenient and consider it done with a sincere apology to Midoriya and a well-done performance. I'm beyond that, however, and I can honestly say that you all, apart from Midoriya, are a disgrace to this school. Silence hangs in the air, only broken by Izuku's choked-back sob. No teacher has ever said something so nice to him. They usually tend to either ignore or just kinda accept him for his good grades, but this is faith. Aizawa-sensei, Eraserhead, has faith in him. It's good to know what that feels like, but surely, the boy can't have read the message between the lines correctly. So, yes, that means you're all expelled except for Midoriya. Leave the track suits in the lockers. You can't do that. You tricked us. A black-haired boy yells angrily, baring his teeth. What can I say? The teacher shrugs before a truly terrifying grin splits his lips and widens his bloodshot sclera. It was a logical ruse. After that, not many more dare to argue. Izuku wonders if Aizawa-sensei knows how unhinged that smirk of his is. He watches fascinated as the last 7 of his classmates retreat with minimal grumbling and maximal wrath. Weirdly enough, a mathematical equation appears in Izuku's mind, something along the lines of exponential decrease of vocal displeasure with the steady increase of anger. When the not anymore students are gone from his sight, Aizawa-sensei lets out a sigh. I'm so going to get parent complaints. Midoriya, here's a ball. Throw it. We're still having that evaluation. A softball is given to Izuku. He does as instructed, because he doesn't want to be expelled for dumbly staring at his homeroom teacher. With all of his upper body strength, the freckled teenager sends the ball hurling. 75 meters. Good, now sprint. In the sprint fraction, Izuku achieves 5.7 seconds, 71 kilograms in the grip test, 2.3 meters in the long jump, sidesteps 84 times in a minute and, last but not least, can last nearly 6 minutes in the endurance test until he drops to the ground sweaty and heavily breathing. Decent for now. Obviously, we'll train towards raising your scores, plus ultra and all. For now, you've done a good job. Get changed and I'll give you the lesson plan. Oh, and Midoriya? Izuku feels goosebumps on his neck before he turns his head to his teacher, who has adopted that crazed grin again. Welcome to Class 1A. Should a greeting sound that much like a threat? Izuku blinks at the title of his schedule. It says, Joint Timetable 1A and 1B, if Shoyuta actually has students this time. Oh. Aizawa-sensei? He asks the man who shucks the other possible timetables into the trash bin. What is it, Midoriya? Is that a microphone emoji? Aizawa-sensei raises an eyebrow and motions for Izuku to let him take a look at the paper again. The boy obliges. Tired, bloodshot eyes fly over the first sentence and he sighs. It's not a normal sigh by any means. It manages to convey fondness, exasperation as well as disbelief all in one. Izuku thinks he hears a muffled, "God damn it, Hisashi," but Aizawa-sensei just hands him the schedule back and nods. Yes, he says out loud, no wonder that, you'll have lessons with mixed class after all. With present mixed class? Izuku eagerly asks. He's the homeroom teacher of 1B? Yes. And your English teacher? Aizawa supplies. For a moment, it seems as if Izuku's vibrating with the amount of enthusiasm he displays. He now happily reads over the rest of his timetable. In the mornings he'll have homeroom with Aizawa-sensei in Class 1A. However, homeroom isn't the only class Eraserhead teaches. Izuku frowns at the afternoon classes he apparently has twice a week. It doesn't really say which subject it is. It's only marked as being with Eraserhead and, just as homeroom, 1A exclusive. What about the afternoon classes? Izuku gulps when he sees how sinister Aizawa-sensei grins. Let's just call them underground heroics. I have to be honest with you. Someone like you will have to rely on stealth, dirty fighting, weapons and intelligence to become a hero, either underground or limelight. Vlad King can teach you the basics and I'll drill tactics and tricks I've learnt on the streets into you. Do you have any other afternoon activities? If so, you'll have to tell me whether they overlap with the plan. The boy thinks about his schedule for a moment and then shakes his head. No, he tells the man, I have a parkour's class on Saturday, another one on Tuesday. Taekwondo is on Wednesday and late in the evening on Saturday and football on Friday and Sunday. Mondays and Thursdays are pretty much free normally, so that's quite well. Sheepishly he shuts up. His teacher's grin somehow intensifies. That's good. I won't have to go easy on you then. Izuku has probably just condemned himself to a life full of pain. Shouldn't he feel a bit less giddy about that? Well, I'll see you tomorrow, Midoriya. Sensei grabs his yellow sleeping bag and shuffles out of classroom 1. Izuku stares after him, still not truly comprehending this day's events. One cannot fault him for that in all honesty. This day felt like a week. Maybe it has something to do with how quickly everyone else had been expelled. In a haze, the 15-year-old trots out of UA's facility and to the train station. On his way, he sees a villain fight from afar. A heroine called Stone Hunch fires pebbles at high speed out of her rocky hunchback at a sickly thin man with sharp, pointy feet. Izuku knows the heroine will win because the villain already looks as if he's nearly keeling over. He doesn't unpack his hero analysis notebook, current number 16, because he's pretty sure he wrote down a page or two about Stonehunch in the 14th one. Absent-mindedly, he throws a glance at his phone. The train will arrive in 20 minutes anyways. It's not as if anyone but his mom is waiting for him at home, though, so even if he misses it, no harm's done. He swallows down a bitter sigh, adjusting his subtle dark blue All Might backpack on his sore shoulders. The Sir Night Eye charm rustles against the fabric. Today, the weather's objectively beautiful. A mostly cloudless sky lets the sun through perfectly. It isn't even uncomfortably hot. Apart from a couple of other people, he's alone at the train station. That's no wonder, as Aizawa-sensei's test hasn't lasted longer than the usual opening ceremony. Izuku is surprised the principal allowed his homeroom teacher to skip it. Then again, Aizawa-sensei probably just smiled at his boss once and Netsu caved in. Those smiles. Izuku shudders when he thinks about them. He wishes he could grin like that. It would definitely scare the hell out of villains. Is Eraserhead's smile the underground equivalent to All Might's? You excuse me? A timid voice asks directly next to his ear. Izuku, who had been too invested in his thought process, shrieks, and with adrenaline pumping in his veins he spins around, punching forward reflexively. Only after he hears a sickeningly crunch the freckled boy stops in his tracks. He winces at the sight of a boy holding his nose. Red liquid drops onto the asphalt below. A couple of seconds later, the realization settles in. Izuku has probably broken someone's nose just now. Oh shit. JG's. Are you alright? The green-haired boy kneels down, carefully laying a hand on the other boy's shoulder. Indigo-colored eyes widen in shock. Suddenly, Izuku finds himself with an aching behind, sitting on the ground as he stares at the retreating back of the person he's injured. The guy is running away. Izuku thinks shell-shocked. The guy is running away from him. Well, he did pretty much slam his fist into the other's face. He guesses this sort of behavior warrants a flight instinct. Izuku wonders, hasn't that been a UA uniform he just saw on the boy? Did he break one of his future lesson mates because, well, they aren't in his class, those students in 1B, knows? He hopes not. That would be awkward as hell. He groans. It already is awkward as hell. He thinks about attempting to follow the boy, just to make sure he gets treated, of course, but there's absolutely no way he can actually find him. The shy teen was pretty DMN fast. Perhaps even faster than Izuku, who has been playing football for 4 years and running park hours since he was 13. Thankfully, his decision is taken care of in the form of the train pulling up to the station. He finds a seat next to one of the windows and lets his reddened cheek rest against the cool glass. Now that the shock has worn off, he feels a stab of guilt and embarrassment in his heart. At least his reflexes are nothing to joke about if one blends out the fact that he hadn't even noticed the boy before he'd breathily spoken practically into Izuku's ear. Situational awareness seems to be something he'll learn in underground heroics. Now, at least, he knows he needs those afternoon classes with Aizawa-sensei. A good quarter hour later, when the freckled youth has stopped looking like a tomato, a robotic voice announces his station will be the next destination. As usual, he stands up sooner than necessary, maneuvering through the narrow space between the 2 seat rows. His hand automatically reaches for a pole to steady his equilibrium, and he lazily watches the scenery drift past. The train's fast, it'll arrive shortly for sure. Suddenly, something prickles in Izuku's neck. At first he pushes it aside, but then it becomes stronger. Much stronger. A strange sense of loneliness settles in his stomach. However, it comes across differently than a normal feeling. Different in a way he's never experienced a feeling before, so very sinister and blood-curdling. So very haunting and tragically deep. And there's something behind him. He knows that there's something. Someone. Slowly, he shifts from foot to foot, turning ever so slightly to assess the people. A young mother cradles her baby in her arms, gently shushing it while keeping the stroller from rolling off with the tip of her boot. Then, on the other end of the single-seat bench facing the train's door, a middle-aged man in dirty blue overalls supports his head with an equally muddied palm. He has his eyes closed so he can't be the one who lets his skin crawl. Izuku ignores the 2 or 3 passengers who stand off to the side, waiting with bored expressions for the train station. He casts them aside because, for a moment, it's as if he looks at the bottom of an ocean. His airways clog, unable to accept oxygen. How could they when he's sinking like a deadweight, down into the deepest of seas where no man has ever been before? Midoriya Izuku is alone. He has always been alone. Always will be. I'm sorry. Quirkless? W. No wonder your name can be read as Deku. He's weird. Yeah, right? Doesn't even have a quirk. Midoriya studies again. Well, it's all he ever does. For what though? Someone like him can't be a hero. Izuku, why do you try so hard to become a hero? With your grades you could be everything else. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. His body convulses, involuntarily shudders in pure terror. When I die, I'm dying alone. Echoes through his mind like an indoctrinated truth. I'll die alone. He has never felt such a vulnerability before, so incredibly, utterly at his own panic's mercy, trapped inside his head without an escape. Izuku's body betrays him, step by step repelling his determination and will, and he can't do a single thing against it. But then, at his lowest point when his fear, his horror, threatens to become something else entirely, reality clicks into place like the last puzzle piece. The picture is finished and the one-dimensional emotion has gone back to becoming a three-dimensional mind with thoughts and other feelings. As soon as Izuku has managed to completely snap out of it, his green eyes frantically search for a sign of bewilderment on the other passengers' visages. No one is disturbed. The peace in this train cart seemingly has never been endangered. Hasn't it for them? What a charade. He doesn't want to be pulled into the abyss of loneliness again. But Izuku is a stubborn one. When he knows that there's something terribly wrong, he just has to investigate. Sticking his nose into other people's businesses once more proves to be one of his favored hobbies. The man still doesn't look like much, old, worn, wrinkles caved into the surface of his saggy skin. Though, where black holes used to be are now mind-numbingly normal human eyes. What has happened? Has Izuku imagined the blind fear? Is he going insane? Firstly, he injures someone and now he's fantasizing about an old man being. What exactly? A monster? A creature straight out of the worst kinds of horror stories? He lets his lungs fill with air, sweet, wonderful air, then he slowly exhales. Above him, coming from the speakers, he faintly hears the announcement that he finally, and hasn't it been too long? The time feels so insanely off, can exit the train. The boy's heart still beats harshly against his ribcage, in an even harder pace than it had done after Aizawa-sensei's evaluation. As soon as the door opens, he bolts out fast. He can't help himself but craning his neck back one last time to see that man. The stranger is looking directly at Izuku. His eyes crinkle in the mock motion of a genuine smile. And now he knows that the loneliness isn't a byproduct of his fantasy, because it tries to claw itself into Izuku's brain again. Before it can occur, luckily, the door closes. He watches the train leave the station. Yes, the incident was very odd. Yes, the old man's quirk was probably just something that activates on its own. Yes, Izuku shouldn't immediately jump to conclusions and interpret the scene as something other than a misunderstanding. But somehow a foreboding, raw voice screams in his mind. It screams that this isn't over yet. It screams that this has only just begun. And Izuku can't do anything else than to wander homewards and wish for his instincts to be wrong. The sun is bright, the sky cloudless, and it's early afternoon when the freckled teen fingers the keys for his house out of his pocket. "Mom, I'm back," he calls, carelessly chucking his dark red sneakers in the general direction of the shoe rack and runs his hand once through forest green hair which isn't curly so much as it is plain messy. "Izuku." Inko answers back joyously, stepping out of the kitchen to properly greet her son. Izuku blushes a bit when her gentle arms draw him into a tight embrace. Obviously, the woman notices the flustered expression and laughs. "We're not even in public and I'm still managing to embarrass you?" "No. I'm out of it today. It's been a weird. Come on, sit down and tell me all about you. How was it? Is it as big inside as it looks outside? Is your teacher nice? Better yet," she pauses, hope flashing behind her eyes, "are your classmates nice?" The teenager sits down and decides to unfasten his tie. God, he hates those things, he can't even tie them right or else they'd feel too constricting, and replies, "Well, first of all, the school's really huge. Like, enormous. Even the doors honestly were twice as big as normal's ones. And my teacher's so cool. It's Eraserhead, Mum. I have Eraserhead as my homeroom teacher. The underground hero you like so much?" Inko intercepts in disbelief. "Yeah, it's really him. And present Mick's gonna be my English teacher," the boy squeals. "No way." "Yes, for real." Inko adapts a more concerned face. And your classmates, Izuku?" Awkwardly, Izuku clears his throat. "You see, I sort of don't have them anymore." She frowns confused. What is that supposed to mean? They were expelled? All 19 of them? Izuku scratches his cheek sheepishly. "Aizawa-sensei to Eraserhead, that is, threw them out after they. I guess I don't know the reason for some of them, but a couple were pretty rude. To me. They were pretty rude to me." Inko blinks, trying to process the information. Then she huffs. "Good. she says, finally a teacher who actually cares about you. Izuku rolls his eyes. Don't mom me, Izuku. You know it's true, and forgive me my language here, that your middle school teachers were downright shit. Inko fiercely declares, catching Izuku off guard with the unusual explicitness. She's right, though, the boy silently thinks to himself. Aizawa-sensei is better than all of his old teachers combined. It's kind of sad that he can say that with a 99% conviction before he even had his first lesson with the scruffy man. Another question pulls him back from his musings. So, how are you going to be taught? For a moment, Izuku doesn't quite understand, but he catches on soon. Mostly, I'll stay with Class 1B. Didn't met any of them yet. I hope. The last part is mumbled quietly to himself as he thinks back to the boy with elf ears and indigo hair. I'm sure they'll be all right, his mother optimistically states. He shrugs, not really keen on giving the notion any attention right now. Sure, if 1BS magically any better than the ex-members of 1A, then that's great, but otherwise he doesn't want to think about them quite yet when he can live for another 18 hours in blissful ignorance. When's lunch going to be ready? He asks instead. His mother suddenly looks at him with an underlying sadness which makes Izuku feel exposed and like a fragile glass figurine. She's always been so very good at picking his poor misdirections apart. He doesn't believe in optimism. In an hour, dear. Izuku nods sharply, stands up, grabs his backpack and retreats to his room. He lets the bag fall onto the floor after he closes the door and exhales heavily. It's dark in here, only a few rays of sunshine filter through nearly closed blinds. They shine onto some of his all-might merchandise, drawing reflections on their plastic surfaces. He unbuttons his jacket and the white shirt underneath until his chest is halfway exposed. Izuku lowers himself on the bureau chair. He grabs a random history book and starts reading on the page where he has left a bookmark last night. Midoriya studies again. Well, it's all he ever does. Izuku snorts, lips contorting in a bitter grimace. Well, it's all he ever does. What else should he do, though? It's not as if he's ever had any friends to hang out with. He wakes up at his desk with his neck bent in such an abnormal way that there's absolutely no doubt he'll probably feel it for a couple of days. Izuku groans, throws a look at the subtle digital clock on his nightstand and stretches his stiff limbs until seemingly every joint in his poor body cracks at least once. It's 5:30 in the morning. He remembers reading until 9 after having eaten his mom's meal. Izuku must have been more exhausted than he'd thought because he can't recall when he nodded off. A sudden realization courses through his head, making his heart beat faster. Today, he'll meet another 20 kids who'll probably judge him for what he is. Shoving the unpleasant fact to the very back of his mind, he retrieves his timetable and reads over the entry for Tuesdays. Homeroom, English, Modern Hero Art History, a double lesson mathematics, and then heroics. Heroics, Izuku thinks apprehensively, I wonder how that's going to be. Will it be like training? Or will it be theory mixed with exercise? In any case, he'll probably be the odd one out, the only one without a quirk. Has there ever been a quirkless student in UA, aside from him? He wonders if that's something he could check. After stifling a heavy sigh, he tiptoes down the stairs. May as well start the day by cooking breakfast for his mother and himself. Usually, it's Inko who has to stand up early, but today is her day off and Izuku would rather let her enjoy it. His mom's been pretty stressed lately with how much his school supplies had cost her. He throws on the rice cooker and fries some eggs. While doing that, he lets his thoughts drift. What has happened the day before? Was it really him just having an odd reaction to his nerves? Or was it more than that? Because, to be quite honest, Izuku doesn't believe he's imagined the ordeal. It was simply too strange for an imagination. Perhaps he should tell Aizawa-sensei the whole story? After all, the man is a professional hero and could look into it. Izuku shakes his head. No, he's definitely overreacting. It was just an elderly man whose quirk probably, by the looks of it, had something to do with insecurities or fear, and it ran rampage because it sensed Izuku's high levels of anxiety. Nobody else was influenced, it was just him, again. Quirkless, anxiousness-ridden Midoriya Izuku. To go to Eraserhead and waste his time would make him feel incredibly guilty when it most surely was just a weird quirk ordeal. He flips the eggs one by one before continuing his musings. Izuku always actively follows the news. As a hero in training, he feels like he has to do so, and no newspaper, radio station or news show on TV or the internet mentioned a fear-based villain or criminal. The day before, he'd gone on a research spree after lunch. I won't waste Aizawa-sensei's time, he decides firmly. The sound of faint footsteps makes Izuku look up. His mother, still wearing her usual deep purple nightgown, trots towards the stove and gives him a quick kiss on the cheek. "Good morning, dear," she mumbles, undeniably sleep-drunken. "Morning, Thum." "Oh, you're making breakfast? You didn't have to." Inko says but smiles at her son's thoughtfulness. "How did you sleep?" Izuku makes a disgruntled face. At the desk again, he admits. "Izuku." His mother hugs him, drawing circles on his taut back. "Should I give you a massage? Your muscles are really tense and I don't want you to pull something during heroics." "How did you dash?" The boy doesn't remember his mother ever having read his timetable. Inko frowns. "You have to work on your attention. You even greeted me yesterday when I took a picture of it." "Wait, really?" His mother sighs, fondly shaking her head. "Just sit down and I'll massage you." Still confused but grateful, Izuku sits down with his back facing his mom. Degree. It's going to be all right. Don't worry," Izuku's mother said just as he was about to leave the house. "Don't worry." Sure, Izuku's not going to worry. Because, obviously, he can completely turn off his tendency to overthink things at will. Izuku is not having a great time. Luckily, first of all and before he'll meet his fellow students, he has a homeroom lesson with Aizawa-sensei in Class 1A. With shaky fingers, he opens his classroom's door. Promptly, when his eyes meet the changed interior, he stills in his tracks. Izuku's jaw drops at the odd sight of two large beanbags, one in obnoxiously cheerful yellow and another in a deep shade of emerald green, casually sitting on a Persian rug that hasn't been there yesterday either. Every desk but one is gone, leaving the room oddly empty. Izuku is a bit in awe at how big it actually is, now that the open space has been made more obvious. The single desk, situated between the beanbags, isn't a normal classroom desk. Rather, it seems to be one of those round glass tables one expects from a nice small cafe. However, the rest of the classroom isn't barren either, despite the table's abstinence. A cart with 3 jugs filled to the brim with different liquids, iced coffee, water and orange juice, stands next to a second cart, which harbors a tiny library's amount of books. At first glance, Izuku doesn't recognize any of them, but after inching closer and tracing their backs, the green-haired boy notices that he has some of them at home. They're largely centered around the topics of quirk history, crime and justice. While most are. He wrinkles his forehead in confusion when he spots the famous 3-piece Lord of the Rings epic. I see Mike did redecorate." The boy flinches, for he hasn't heard his teacher approaching. What is it with him and not noticing others creeping up on him? He's literally already become a safety hazard because of his inattentiveness. Izuku recovers and hesitantly asks, "Why?" while gesturing broadly at the general interior. Aizawa trots towards the yellow beanbag, unceremoniously lets his body fall into the cushion and crosses his fingers. There he lies, like an unruly teenager, and the expression on his face remains uncomfortably neutral. After a couple of seconds, he deems it necessary to answer the actual teenager's question. "I don't have any idea why this man does the things he does." "Oh." Izuku scratches his scalp and spontaneously decides to drink a glass of water. Or 2. Or 3. Maybe 4? His teacher sighs in aggravation. "You don't need to be so goddamn nervous around me, kid." Izuku quickly interjects. "It's not you." He winces at the speed and volume but continues to explain. "It's just, I'm kinda not too thrilled about today. If you know what I mean." Aizawa just stares at him. "But I don't know. Perhaps my mom's right and they will be better than, well, the rest of X1. I'm not sure about it. What if they aren't going to accept me? What if they dislike me? You can't expel them too. It'd super be weird to be a one-man show like that. It's already weird, not gonna lie. Oh God, I sound childish. Anyways, what I mean is that I'm very unsure, An. Yes, The boy empties another glass, relishing in the short relief of fresh water pouring down his dry throat. So, basically, you are afraid of mixed class. Aizawa states. Yes? That's what I said. The man nods once and then points towards the green beanbag. Sit down, Midoriya. We're going to do an exercise. I don't want you to throw up in half an hour. Exercise? Izuku is a little skeptic. Thus far, no amount of forcing himself to calm down has worked, and he usually just accepts that he has to inevitably face his anxiety head-on to do short of anything at all. He walks to the avocado-looking thing and, unlike Aizawa-sensei, slowly sinks down into the plush surface. The beanbag tries to swallow him whole. Aizawa lowers his mouth into his capture gear, but Izuku thinks he can see a smirk on his face. Yes, exercise. Oh, well, you could also call it meditation. Close your eyes and try not to think of anything at all. Aizawa instructs. The Midoriya frowns in pure confusion. Not to think of anything at all? How? He demands unsurely. Doesn't your head ever shut up? Judging from the man's incredulous tone, Izuku's predicament isn't something he's had to personally deal with. Izuku fiddles with his bottom lip and tries his hardest to actually remember a time when his mind wasn't constantly giving him information to work with or just rambling nonsensical bits in a breakneck fast pace. Can't. No? I don't think so, to be honest. Aizawa nods. I understand. Izuku strongly suspects he doesn't actually understand, judging by the way he frowns. Then we will take advantage of your imagination. First of all, close your eyes as I said. This time, Izuku follows his teacher's order. He snaps his eyes shut and sinks a little bit further into the plush underneath him. Let's start by making a landscape inside your mind. Imagine a forest. He halts, asks to be sure, you don't have aphantasia, right? You can imagine things in your head? Which his student answers by nodding. Okay, good. Yeah, forest. The trees are close to each other and you can see it's early summer by how green the leaves are. Can you do that? Can you see it? It doesn't take long for Izuku to mentally see large, detailed tree trunks surrounding him. They are healthy and through the thicket of bright green, a tone that isn't all too different from his mother's hair. The sun shines down onto the typical brownish ground that's made up of old dead leaves and twigs. Automatically, he nods again when he hears Aizawa's question like breeze hitting his right ear. Fine. You stand there in the forest. Your nose picks up on the plant's smells and your ears hear a quiet but steady river. How's the weather? Sunny. It's hot. Izuku mumbles. Yes. It is. A couple of birds are chirping and when you turn towards the sound, you see two robins perched on a thick branch. Izuku listens to the description and, as if his mind agrees wholeheartedly with whatever Aizawa-sensei tells him, he suddenly perceives the birds as well. They're to his right and he can spot their characteristics, their orange-red, gray and white plumage, their small black beaks and beady eyes. Although, for a single moment, they're completely still, waiting for the boy to finish his scrutiny. Then, as soon as Izuku is done with analyzing their appearances, why do they seem so incredibly real? Has he always been able to recall things with this much detail? The robins happily begin to move and sing a song to each other. To his left, where used to be nothing but wood, is Aizawa. No. It's Eraserhead. The hero wears his costume, goggles obscuring his red eyes. They're red when he uses his quirk, his hair dances in the windless air, and outfit not any different from his casual clothes. Does he ever wear anything else? Robins aren't the only animals around. Eraserhead explains, mouth forming the words in sync with his real-life's equivalent's voice. If you look ahead, you may be able to spot a deer. A deer? Izuku's vision catches a motion, leaves rustling as the animal slightly inches closer to the humans. His breath catches in his throat. Never before has he seen such a beautiful creature. Its white mottled fur looks so smooth and soft that Izuku can imagine how nice it would be to touch it. Doll-like dark eyes watch him closely and the deer's ears are pointed in an angle upwards. It's adorable. Izuku says awestruck. It is. Now look around, memorize everything you see so that you're able to recall this place anytime. This is your place, your safe place. How do you feel? Izuku doesn't even have to think before he blurts out, "Calm." Then remember your calmness. Remember the peace, the quiet, remember everything you can perceive. Make it yours. Eraserhead speaks, his figure slowly fading as Izuku follows his orders. Make it yours. This is mine. This calmness belongs to me. Izuku drifts. Shoyuta gives the kid time to process. To be frank, he's astonished by how well this spontaneous thing is working, and he hopes his student will use it to better his anxiousness even when he's not around to guide him through it. He knows anxiety is tricky BSTRD and definitely won't just completely disappear by creating a peaceful landscape. But it's a start, at least, if nothing else. The classroom's clock tells him they still have about 10 minutes left until Midoriya meets Class 1B. There's no doubt in Shuta's mind that yesterday's occurrences have put a damper on the teenager's willingness for that ordeal. However, the boy's just going to have to deal with it. Babying him wouldn't do any good for somebody who wants to be a quirkless hero. When you're done, you can open your eyes, he says. 2 seconds later, the boy's much calmer eyes meet his. That was... Midoriya struggles to find the right word, probably not wanting to sound too grateful or kitschy. Helpful. Thanks, sensei. Shoyuta hums in agreement. No things are for free though. Gimme a cup of coffee. Midoriya chuckles before he notices his teacher's serious expression. He stands up and does as instructed while Shoyuta musters his only student, thinking to himself, I'm glad something I pulled out of my butt worked so well. Midoriya definitely doesn't need to know he had absolutely no idea how to deal with the boy's problem. That's Hisashi's forte anyways. Not that Hisashi ever shows it outside of their apartment. He accepts the mug and both of them spend the rest of their homeroom in companionable silence. The bell rings sooner than either of them expects it to, but Izuku doesn't mind, actually. Now that he isn't nervously awaiting his doom anymore, the anticipation from the day before yesterday settles in. He doesn't even truly think about the teenager whose nose he had broken some odd hours ago. If the boy is in 1B, he only has it easier to apologize to him. Izuku heads out, leaving behind the cozy hideout, and walks to the great door with 1B on it. A sense of déjà vu makes him smile a bit. Hopefully, nobody will shove him into the blackboard today. His fingers fly through his messy hair and he inhales deeply before entering. 1B, here he comes. The first things Izuku sees are small groups of people chatting with each other and some loners sitting at their desks with blank expressions, tipping fast on mobile phones that look either really expensive or dirt cheap. It's the exact same experience as yesterday so far. But nobody notices the single 1A student in the front of the classroom, and Izuku feels like air, as if he's even more see-through than the ghost girl in the first row who chats with a pink-haired and eyed boy. He goes by unnoticed. The scene makes him look back into the past. It's not some sort of special memory or a single occurrence. Instead, Izuku remembers a dull pain in his chest that, day by day, sometimes even second by second, would grow and nourish. He recalls overhearing people talking about their meetups with their friends and what they did on their weekends. He recalls wanting to be a part of it so badly but never even trying after the first couple of half-butted excuses of why he wasn't invited when seemingly everyone else was. Whether they are ignoring him deliberately or just haven't noticed him yet doesn't matter, as the remembrance of those times still makes him retreat to the empty chair near the teacher's desk that's so obviously his because it stands out like a sore thumb, without attempting to strike a conversation with anybody. Izuku is glad when the bell announces the start of English. The students don't have to wait long until a disheveled present mic, carrying various utensils and, simultaneously, balancing a cup of coffee, strides into the room. He's less dramatic about it than one would think, and his hero outfit is one of the only things that's the same when comparing this mic to the exuberant one Izuku had seen at his entrance exam, for example. He doesn't show the usual enthusiastic grin he dons when talking to an audience. Also, he's careful when setting down his stuff as to not cause a big ruckus, Izuku presumes. Good morning, my precious people. The teenager flinches. Hey, maybe present Mike is just always present Mike and Izuku is only interpreting things into useless observations. That's most likely the case. Good morning, Mike-sensei. The class drones back, letting a frown appear on the professional hero's face. A little bit more enthusiastic. Come on. 3 to the feeling. Good morning, Mike-sensei. The sound of 21 very mismatched and not at all in sync voices echoes through the room. What a cacophony, something Izuku would never want to hear again, but, apparently, it's music in Mike-sensei's ears, which lets Izuku question his English teacher's hearing, because he flashes them a joyful thumbs up. Great, he adds to that, what a nice way to start the morning. Curriculum. Are you ready? Yay! The students roar and a small, impish smirk forms at Mike-sensei's mouth corner. They got played. Izuku thinks sheepishly, watching his teacher start the projector. A presentation is shown and immediately, the green-haired boy wants to groan. What a bore. Izuku knows most things on the list, as far as he can tell, and he already is rather fluent in the English language. That's honestly one of the few things he's glad about when it comes to not having friends. Now, though, he wants to turn back time and erase the idea of using the English side of the internet. How can he live through a full year of gathering information that's already inscribed in his brain? He fidgets in his seat when, after half an hour, words wants to form on his lips. So far, Izuku's been able to hold back that annoying muttering habit of his, but without anything to focus on, the risk of it breaking out of control is much higher. Although he suppresses the flow successfully, a small squeak nonetheless leaves his throat. Oh God! The class is quiet, now completely, and present Mike turns around. He asks, eyebrows drawn up nearly to his hairline. Izuku sinks into his chair. Sheet, abort mission. Abort mission? What mission? It doesn't matter, just abort it. That doesn't make any sense. Shut up. Izuku squeals uncontrollably, in English, of course, gotta stay in the lesson-used language after all. Mike-sensei blinks. Izuku's mouth remains agape, a helpless look appearing on his face. Some of the other students start to snicker, murmuring things to their desk neighbors. Finally, Izuku's able to pick up his dropped jaw and, simultaneously, the blonde hero's lips form a bright grin as recognition flickers through his eyes. See, class? That's the spirit, one boy. Said one boy splutters when Mike motions for him to come to the front. Nonetheless, he shuffles closer to the radio host. Mike calls into the room, "May I introduce to you, Midoriya Izuku, the entirety of Class 1A. I was a bit frazzled today and that's why I forgot to mention it, but luckily, Midoriya-kun reminded me to shut the hell up to finally tell you what the freak's going on, yeah." Izuku tries to throw in, "No, that's really not what I dash," but Mike silences him, continuing his introduction of epic proportions. This little guy here went into battle with a frying pan and a baseball bat in the entrance exam. He's the only one who survived Eraser's evaluation, and he doesn't even have a quirk. He's crazy. If there's ever been one time Izuku contemplates on becoming a villain instead of a hero, it's right in this moment. He looks at his teacher in a similar manner as Aizawa-sensei the day before when the man's heard Ryokan Roru's reasoning skills. No quirk. There it goes, his will to live. That's so funky, I'm gonna go wild. How the f did he KO robots with a frying pan? The guy's already a blast, I can tell ya that. At least they're not A, threatening him, B, questioning his worth, or C, doubting his success. That doesn't mean it isn't slightly intimidating to have nearly a whole class attention directed solely at him. Not that great really, guys? He stutters uncomfortably when the exclamations slowly die down and they start eyeing him, expecting some sort of statement from him. Alas. Don't suffocate the poor dude. Oh, the lesson's ending. See you tomorrow, yeah. Present Mike leaves Izuku to fend for himself, which is a pretty bold move in and of itself, but becomes even bolder when he throws a wink at the startled Midoriya before heading off to who knows where. What an a-hole, the boy thinks as most people zero in on him. Some of them stand up to walk towards him, and nope, Izuku's not going to let that happen. With all the might of someone who has spent nearly 3 years doing parkour, he sprints out of the classroom, adrenaline rushing through his body as he meanders in a breakneck speed around unassuming UA students. His destination is clear, the boys' toilets on the very same floor. Only when the lock clicks close behind him and Izuku's sitting fully clad on a cheap toilet lid that's bending under the weight of his rear, he realizes what he's done. He groans shamefully, hiding his heated face in his palms. That's the worst reaction I could have possibly had. What are they gonna think of me? Oh God, I'll be known as an antisocial weirdo. Not only that, but I also badmouthed a pro hero who didn't even do anything. I'm the worst at this. The absolute worst. Maybe Aizawa-sensei is going to expel me when he hears about this. I can't believe I've done this. I'm a piece of dirt. Not even the good nourishing dirt where plants flourish, no. I'm the driest, ugliest, clumpiest piece of dirt out there. The dirtiest dirt in the entire universe. The dash. A knock on the stall door. Izuku freezes. Are you alright? No, Izuku wants to reply, I'm not, nor have I ever been alright. But because that would be really dramatic, and he's trying to avoid drama, even though he's caught up in so damn much of it already, the Midoriya answers croakily, why yeah, I've never been finer before, and promptly wants to bury himself in a thick layer of sand. I've never been finer before? He asks himself quietly, grimacing at the cheesy line. Well then, I'll trust you on that, the other boy says, his tone betraying that he does, in fact, most probably not trust Izuku on that. However, it seems recess is about to end because the mess in the stall, also known as Midoriya Izuku, listens the stranger's footsteps becoming fainter until they can't be heard anymore. Then the bell rings. Izuku is officially too late for modern hero art history taught by midnight. Taught by midnight. His eyes widen. Oh shit, he curses, sprinting out of the restroom, leaving behind his anxiety, just like present Mike left him behind. He's neither going to forget nor forgive the man for that anytime soon. Midnight, he knows, always has a cat o' nine tails with her, and he doesn't want to risk being the first victim to receive her wrath. Degree. After a very interesting introduction to the subject of modern hero art history, Izuku's relieved when the double lessons of mathematics afterwards prove to be demanding enough that his brain is focused on the task rather than on something else. And Izuku absolutely relishes in it. He smiles throughout the entirety of those 2 hours, and thinks Ectoplasm Sensei may look a bit disturbed after he gazes in his direction and spots him still stupidly smiling down at his worksheet. Sadly, lunch break arrives sooner than he would have liked. Izuku is the first one out of the room, still inclined on not speaking to anyone, especially after his breakdown on the toilet. It could very well be, after all, that the other boy was somebody from his class. Concerning that topic, Izuku's just glad that the one who received his fist the day before isn't in 1B. He stumbles upon an empty corner, shielded from an outsider's perspective, and huddles into it like the pathetic childish wannabe hero he is. His self-esteem has been declining ever since he opened his mouth in English. Today, he thinks as he unpacks his mom's homemade bento box, is not his day. Sighing deeply, he shakes his head again at the thought of all of the messed up interactions he's lived through in the last. What was it? 5 hours. Izuku closes his eyes when his fingers begin trembling and the need to chuck himself out of the window becomes too much to bear. He remembers Aizawa-sensei's little meditation exercise. Yeah, that forest looks good, green, fresh, smells nice. Yes, and that deer is still adorable, and yes, the 2 robins chirp happily. After repeatedly checking on these things captured inside his previously constructed mental landscape, he can at least eat his lunch without feeling like he's going to barf it all over the place. The food is delicious, and he takes a look at his phone. He still has about half an hour until his first heroics lessons with Vlad King. When the bento box lies emptily next to him, he notes he has finally calmed down entirely. It needs a bit of time for him to adapt. And, well, it's going to be no different from then on. No different from his elementary or middle school experiences social-wise. Izuku usually f's something up in the first few days, be it merely being quirkless or hella awkward. And now that it's over, hopefully, he feels his neutrality settle in. In a way, he's glad nothing is going to change. He knows how this works. He knows only his determination will accompany him on his task of becoming a great hero. It's always been like this. He allows himself a small grin that doesn't reach his eyes, but the anxiety of meeting new people, of being put in a completely strange class, twice. that was the crux of it all, to be honest, is slowly but surely backing off. And that's all that counts. Soon he'll be his old, quiet self again. That may be for the best, he muses, untangling his headphone cable and then tuning into his I Want to Be Hyped playlist until he has to walk to heroics. Degree. Oh, Izuku is in love. Forget everything that has occurred up until this point because Izuku is in love. He touches his hero costume again, getting a feel for it and notices, once again, that he is in love. I think I want to marry whoever made you, the boy says, fastening his weapons on the designated belt. He finally has actual weapons and not a shitty 10-year-old frying pan and a baseball bat his mom has found on sale at the sports gear shop. Actual weapons? Well, weapons which are allowed in a school like this in his first year's first semester, to be fair. Which means that he now wields another baseball bat, made of rubber but with little, not entirely sharp spikes on its end, a knife and a really strong rope. He counts it as a weapon due to the fact that he could strangle someone with it. Not that he's going to. Izuku throws his hood and the black face mask as well as the red-tinted goggles on and takes a look at the mirror. He's definitely going to marry the designer of his hero costume. Whoa dude, you look like a ninja, says a pink-haired boy, one of the few students who are not done with putting their costumes on yet. So far what Izuku sees of it is underwhelming. A gray jumpsuit with a pink belt, no extras, nothing else. Oh thanks. Izuku mumbles, surprised at the sudden praise. He fiddles with the hem of his black outfit, only a few red and white accents here and there, and doesn't quite know what to do. No. Really look at you. I just have this thing here. It kind of... I'm Nagar Kokoro by the way. The guy wants to shake Izuku's hand, how Western. Warily, he takes it into his own, shakes it. Shakes it for far too long. Oh, how long is it acceptable to shake someone's hand anyways? He's pretty sure he should have put it down a couple of seconds ago. Okay, now it's getting weird. Kokoro stifles a laugh. This is getting out of hand. He remarks cleverly but isn't letting go of Izuku's hand either. Izuku snorts, replying, a guide on handshakes would be handy. At least you're a handsome fella. Oh, now you're being a bit of a handful. The spell is broken by another voice shouting, Kooko, and Nagar lets go, giving him a friendly wave before searching for the guy who's shouted his name. Izuku rubs his hand. Did he befriend someone? Is this friendship? Has he calmed down too soon? Is there going to be more of those unknown interactions waiting for him? His anxiety strikes back. And he just accepted his fate too. What the dash? There's nothing he can do about it now. Izuku leaves the locker and sees the rest of 1B. They look very heroic. The ghost girl is wearing a pirate outfit. Interesting. Nagar has fun with a tall dark-skinned boy. They laugh. The dubbed Koko points at his hand and then rather unsubtle at Izuku. They laugh again. Oh, okay. The quirkless boy thinks, not even mad at being made fun of. No friendship. Then Vlad King looks over the group and nods appreciatively. Welcome to Heroics. I'm Sekidrukan, also known as Vlad King. Is everyone here? He counts, nodding once more. Good, we're going to start with a small introduction, safety rules, how to use communicators, and so on. He proceeds by doing exactly that. Izuku listens closely, trying to remember everything. It's important because afterwards, when they're done with the basics, the pro-hero smirks. Now that that's out of the way, let's divide you into groups of 3. Izuku has to swallow. His throat is dry. Maybe he should have had a bit more water. Their sensei takes a box out of his backpack. I have written down your names here and will let luck decide. Yeah, that's not a good idea most of the time. Izuku finds himself in a group with 2 girls who glare daggers at each other. With an expression of pure smugness, their heroics teacher stretches out his arm and presses a button on some sort of remote control. An enormous black panel, which Izuku has honestly just interpreted as a differently designed part of the wall, slides up smoothly to reveal an ordinary window. Well, what's behind the window is certainly not that ordinary, Izuku realizes with a start, because as it turns out, the city behind the glass isn't real. No cars drive through its streets, No civilians wander around to liven up the space, and it's completely tinted in the telltale off-white of cement. Cementos work, he thinks impressed. So these are the famous UA training facilities. Just like in the entrance exam. The Midoriya whispers excitedly, awed at the sheer size of things here at his school. He blends the others out, muttering just as rapidly as he's musing. The exact measurements aren't known to the general public, but I read that there are around 8 vastly varying battle simulation grounds. Oh, sheet, I'm so hyped, not only thanks to my playlist for once in my life. I wonder what the exercise is going to be about. I hope it's going to include the architectural structure. Oh, for FS sake, who am I kidding? Of course Sensei's gonna have the structure play an integral part in it. Either it'll probably be a death match or... Someone clears their throat. Instantly, Izuku becomes aware of the silence that engulfs him like a heavy blanket. He awkwardly shuffles around, directing his attention back to Vlad King, who has his eyebrows raised at him. Dumb. Sorry, Sensei. Right, the pro says slowly. As Midoriya explained, this is one of our famous training grounds. Here at UA, we follow the motto of plus ultra in every aspect. And it shows in our expenses. The last part is quieter, but not enough for them not to pick up on it. Izuku's sweat drops. His teachers don't really mince their words, do they? The hero continues. In this city, we are going to have 2 team fights. The first round with 4 teams and the second with 3. Not quite a death match, Midoriya. He gives Izuku a wink. The boy holds back a small groan. Is this becoming a second present mic situation? Luckily no. Vlad King reads his student's exasperation, and thus, goes back to his explanation seconds after the quick jab. The objective is to incapacitate the other teams. The winning teams of round 1 and 2 then compete in a randomized 1 versus 1. There are 3 winners overall in the end, mainly because we don't have time to drag it out even further. Simple, right? A couple of hero hopefuls hesitantly agree. No, absolutely not simple. Some, those who are in the front row, to be precise, shrink back at the sudden aggressive exclamation. One even flinches so hard that his sunglasses fall off and he grasps his heart in shock. Vlad King barks out a laugh. Sorry, that came out louder than I wanted it to. He apologizes. It isn't as simple as it sounds. You'll have a time limit of 30 minutes, and if one of your team is captured, the whole team loses. Some murmurs go through the crowd, but the teacher ignores them. Well, let's once again randomly decide which teams will compete against each other. Izuku takes the time to get a good look at his teammates. A very tall girl with long dark blue hair adorns the palest skin he's ever seen a human have. Black lipstick, black leggings, black boots, and a black long-sleeve shirt. Honestly, this much black makes her seem a bit intimidating. He's being hypocritical, isn't he? Said intimidation really comes through in the manner in which she stares at their third mate, another girl but stockier than the first, in a tomboyish punk-like outfit, smaller and with glowing yellow eyes and black, messy, kind of short hair that reminds Izuku a little bit of his own. Shorty meets the first one's glare head-on. Their gaze exchange is loaded with simmering disgust. Cool, totally. It's not as if Izuku would have actually wanted a functioning team or something. And Midoriya, Sora-Hoshi, and Haiken in the first round. You will have 15 minutes to discuss strategies. Then go. Izuku can totally somehow wing this. He heads to the 2 girls who haven't ceased their visual dagger stabbing. Hello, he tries and gets an offended growl by the black-haired one for his efforts. Guys, I really think we should dash. Shut up, Midakiwi or whatever. The short one spits out. That one truly can't stand him, huh? He only then realizes his butchered name. K-Kiwi. It's Midoriya, Ash Beach, the other one hisses. Ah, at least she knows he isn't a furry fruit. Small victories. Very, very small victories. I don't effing care, boyfriend stealing where? Oh bloody. That is what it's about, the boy internally screams. UA is apparently no sanctuary that prevents him from unwillingly stumbling into the 10th circle of hell, teenage relationships. I am the boyfriend stealer. What about your shameless flirting? What about your pathetic little tries to get him back? He obviously likes me more if he decides to leave. You're sorry, but for me, the tall girl, presumably Sorohoshi, roasts Haiken with as much attitude as you'd expect. Momentarily, the fronted one doesn't move, just grits her teeth in blindingly hot anger and her eyes grow into slits. Aizawa-sensei would have kicked both of their buttes out, Izuku deadpants internally. Can you blame him? He just wants peace and quiet for, 3 seconds. How about that, huh? Then, Haiken moves and Izuku has to jump back to avoid the following quirk outburst. As it turns out, the eyes turn into slits thing has to be taken in a more literal context as Haiken's quirk is controlling a gigantic snake made of ash that's slowly drizzling to the ground but nonetheless holds its shape. Good to know, would have definitely helped in their team fight. If, she hadn't just attacked one of her own classmates with it. Slowly but surely, the green-haired boy loses his respect for 1B2, firstly, present mix abandonment. Secondly, the handshake friendship start that wasn't the start of a friendship at all, and now this. Well, okay, Izuku's just salty because wherever he looks, he sees teams corresponding with each other just fine. It just has to be his team that's the fluke, hasn't it? Sorohoshi fights back. Of course she does. A hail of small, spiky iron stars shoot out of her palm, acting as a shield against the snake. And Vlad King just watches them go at it. Guys. Izuku attempts to break the tension. Nothing. Naturally, his pleas fall on deaf ears. Guys, please, he tries again. This time it's a little bit more forceful and louder. Nope, neither one of the girls show any reaction to him. He's air for them. Their petty fight is more important than their future, than their hero careers. His arms dangle next to his sides uselessly. Haiken and Sorohoshi couldn't care less about the consequences of their beaching. They simply don't give a shit. How did they get into the most prestigious heroic school in the whole country with their lack of care? Izuku lets out a breath he didn't know he held. This is FNG unfair is the thought that crosses his mind. How can they? How dare they? Something stuck in his throat and with a start, he notices it isn't anxiety. It isn't fear. It isn't even despair. No, it's pure, unadulterated wrath. Izuku remembers then, the daily pains, the insane amount of motivation he had to pull out of nowhere to somehow live through 3 extracurricular activities, each of which he attends not once but twice a week even now that he is a part of UA. He recalls the disbelieving stares, the whispers followed by giggles they thought he didn't hear, when his middle school homeroom teacher asked him if he really wanted to try out for the heroics course. I have no doubt you would get into general education, management, or even support just fine, but heroics? You're quirkless, Midoriya. A sneer on his face, a sneer that belongs to Izuku alone. He smiles for the others, encourages their dreams. Not for Izuku, it's always a sneer for him. It's a stupid idea, boy. Never once had he truly bothered to assess Izuku's strengths. He'd seen only the grades and his status that has marked him as someone he thought was not worth his time. As so many had done before. He honestly compliments himself for not faltering at that critical moment. Everybody else would have internalized it, let the doubts fester, and would have finally caved after years of collected fears and self-worth doubts. But Izuku? Izuku went ahead and replied with a smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. Why should it? Why should he show genuineness when nobody else does? I'm sure about it, sensei. And then he'd gone ahead and simply done it. That quirkless, creepily mumbling, anxious, friendless kid from a slightly worse than average middle school has been admitted into UA, the alma mater for students who desire to become heroes. Midoriya Izuku has always had to fight for his dreams, and now it's no different. He didn't oppose others well-meant but ill-advises every single day this hard just to let 2 girls, who can't put aside their useless drama, trample over his achievements. How are they going to act on their duty? Will they let a helpless citizen die right in front of them just because they're unable to let their differences rest? Izuku has to put his anxiety away too. And that is difficult as hell for somebody who overthinks like there's no tomorrow. Steeling himself for what he's about to do, he thinks of a beautiful deer, of 2 robins, of an inner patch of peace nobody can rob him of before he inhales deeply and, shut up and concentrate. This isn't a freaking playground, idiots. EXPLODs. Oops, that was a bit too loud. He thinks he made the guy with the sunglasses have a heart attack. At least they're paying him attention now. Everybody is. Wow, alright, is it too late to flee to the toilet again? Yeah. Izuku swallows down the bubbling hot embarrassment. We're going to make a battle plan now. Forget about the boyfriend bullshit, you do want to become respectable heroines, right? Where does this strength in his voice come from? Izuku sure as hell doesn't have a clue, but he's glad for its sudden appearance. Sora Hoshi and Heiken nod. Do they look a bit shaken? Izuku can't bring himself to look into their faces for long anyways. We have used up 2/3 of the planning PRD already. However, I already have a couple of wonky ideas in my head. We can do this. We can win this. If you cooperate. Cooperate? He lets out his residue anger with this last shouted question. The girls answer in unison, yes. Izuku will have to know the basics before coming up with more than general ideas. So he asks casually, what exactly are your quirks? Sora Hoshi's face scrunches up. I can create marble-sized metal stars. They can be used offensively, but they also have a really weird side effect. They burn like hell when they touch skin. The boy doesn't yet say anything, just motions for Heiken to take her turn. She shrugs. I can make ash snakes. Maximum is 2 large ones, 3 medium ones, or 10 tiny ones. They let me feel when they're destroyed. Large ones do a decent amount of damage, small ones not so much. Izuku's face lights up. Wait. You can feel when they're destroyed? What does that entail? Are you able to feel their whereabouts and what kind of damage they took when they were killed? Her eyes widen at the questions. She looks a bit astonished that her classmate would consider something like that. Yeah, I know which ones are destroyed and where. Also how. I kinda have an overall flashback in my mind of their last few seconds. Really? That sounds like there's an ability that should let you. Sheet, we don't have time for this. Izuku halts. 10 small snakes, huh? His grin is covered by the black mask, but the girls see how the corners of his eyes crinkle. I know what we'll do with them. Conspiringly, the freckled teenager leans in, whisperingly laying his tactics out. The girls thankfully listen attentively and bring in their own 2 yen. Before long, loud, planning time's up, is shouted by Vlad-sensei, who then motions them closer. Ugh, Izuku rubs the back of his hooded head. He just hopes they can at least win one team fight. It would be a shame if they lost against the first 3 random people they come across. At least they have a solid base. Each one of them gets a communicator pressed in their hands. They are easy to understand if one paid attention to Vlad King's instructions at the beginning of the lesson, which means Izuku needs to do an impromptu tutorial for Sora Hoshi and Heiken. When that's out of the way, their teacher stems his balled fists in his waist and pulls off an intimidating assertion. For the love of UA's budget and powerloader's sanity, do not destroy them. Or else. He stops right in the middle of the threat, leaving it ominously open for interpretation. The students nod in unison. Good. He leads them to a long hallway which ends in a massive black garage door that he opens by letting his eyes be scanned on a compact inbuilt computer panel. Izuku's reminded of a couple of sci-fi films he's watched during his childhood. Yes, he does do fun stuff every once in a while, thank you very much. There's a broad metal staircase leading them to the foot of the city. Now you'll get another 5 minutes to hide, prepare, whatever. I'll give you a signal when the exercise starts. The rest of us will go to the observer's room back there. Good luck, everyone. And remember, if you're thinking about destroying the equipment, don't. Vlad King's white-red gloved hand waves them goodbye as he takes a little less than half of the student with him. Heiken motions for her teammates to go ahead while the others are still looking after their teacher. Izuku nods in comprehension and, to Sora Hoshi's credit, she doesn't utter a word against it. As fast as they can, the 3 of them run through the fake city streets, zigzagging in case someone tries to keep up with them. After a while, the taller girl finds a nook where they can hide for the moment. Right, Izuku whispers, which plan do you think we should try? B, Heiken says quietly, her boyish voice sounding a lot softer that way, 'cause the streets are a bit too narrow for A and the city's too small in general for C. You got anything against it? Her yellow orbs, pupils now gone back to black dots, fixate challengingly on Sorohoshi, whose black-tinted lips grow into a snarl. Izuku prepares to intervene. But nothing happens. Sorohoshi shakes her head sharply. The boy exhales in relief. Okay, Biha? 50-meter radius should be enough. We don't want to be too far from each other. True. I'm on it. Heiken replies whilst creating very small ash snakes, exactly 10, to be precise. God, they are cute and so small, Izuku thinks in private. They even have little details. They are literally snakes. Then they begin their quest. They form a circle with their adorable little heads facing outwards and slither away quickly. Izuku hopes he'll be able to spot them in time if the plan comes to fruition. I will start on the production. Midoriya, give us a call when you see someone. Regardless of the snakes, it'll help us prepare ourselves for possible combat. Sorohoshi murmurs just loud enough for them to hear her. Izuku nods, checks his costume once more, goggles on, hood on, face mask in place, baseball bat, knife and rope ready to be drawn. The Velcro strips on his boots are all fastened to give him the optimal security for running. He's ready. See you later. Bye. He doesn't wait for their answers. Instead, he speeds away, jumping easily up a wall that parts two alleyways. Izuku's seen one of the snakes climb it without any problems. It's best to put as many barriers between his teammates and himself to protect them until their respective tasks come into play. Now he just needs to find someone. Degree. Heiken and Shimmeru kneel next to each other, their previous tryst forgotten in the light of their mission. Midoriya is out there, hopping around like a complete idiot, which is, naturally, part of their plan. Said plan has 6 steps but is rather simple in nature. Shimmeru and Heiken hide in circa the middle of the area, and while the former starts producing massive amounts of her stars, the later lets her 10 snakes spread in a radius of around 50 meters. Izuku acts as bait. Despite the rest of 1B knowing that he achieved first position in the entrance exam, they probably are still likely inclined to underestimate him because he's quirkless. When the Midoriya catches the attention of a person or even a whole team, leading them to hunting him down, he sprints towards the closest snake and destroys it with a kick, signalizing his whereabouts to the girls. Heiken dissipates the rest of the snakes too and instead conjures up a large one that has Sorohoshi's pre-made stars incorporated, something they tried out on a much smaller scale during prep time. The girls ride on the snake to Izuku's destination. He'll run in a counterclockwise circle, which they're able to do because Heiken can make parts of the snake denser and distribute the weighty mass of metal stars to the bottom section of the snake whilst keeping the top. Well, clean is a wrong word as it's still ash, but, clean enough to sit on and not being hurt by Shimmeru's stars. When they meet up, Heiken's snake's going to destroy everyone. Hopefully. Shimmeru hisses. The strain of quirk overuse makes her palms feel heavy like lead. She bites through it. They are counting on her. Midoriya is counting on her. Midoriya, whose eyes were so venomous and at the same time lifeless when he screamed at Heiken and her. Midoriya, who's quirkless and yet took the first place in the exam that led to him becoming a student at UA. Midoriya, who is the only one in their parallel class, something that startles her greatly. Why not one of the 19 others? Why is it that it's the one without powers who could secure his position? There's more to Midoriya than meets the eye, more to the plain-faced freckled boy with heavy anxiety issues. And that boy is counting on her. Sorohoshi Shimmeru isn't one to let the people that are counting on her down. Midoriya reminded her of her goal. So, despite the pain, an uncomfortable ache which numbs her palms, lets her fingers become unbendable and prickles like needles along the entire length of her arms, she endures. Shimmeru remembers. My tiny star, you may not have me at your side in the future, but I know. Shimmeru's eyes sting. Heiken's mouth opens. However, before a sour remark can cut through the silence, a single pained sob beats her to the punch. The snake girl averts her gaze. And Shimmeru remembers. You're going to be a great hero. You're my little sister after all. I hope you will forgive me for leaving you alone. For what would she have endangered her dream? For a little bit of attention she craves so very much, attention that temporarily fills the void, From a disinterested boyfriend who never writes back anyways? She smiles bitterly while teardrops cloud her vision and her arms are shaking more and more each second. I think I spotted someone. Make yourselves ready. Midoriya's voice can be heard through the communicator. She barely notices it. 3 seconds later, Sora Hoshi. Heiken hisses, it's time. Shimmer nods. A relieved sigh leaves her lips when she stops the steady stream of stars. Grimly satisfied, she notes that the pile in front of her is nearly as high as she is tall. The other girl's snake incorporates it hungrily. Shimmeru's heart beats faster in anticipation when she takes a seat on the ash creature's back, right behind Heiken. Hold on tight, the black-haired one says with a mischievous grin. Only a moment later, Shimmeru understands why. The snake is fast, incredibly fast. In fact, oich god, slow down. We're gonna crash. There's a wall. And they're heading right towards it. At a breakneck speed. Heiken's shoulders shake but she doesn't answer. Wind blows into Shimmeru's light blue eyes, carrying her tears with it. In desperation she ducks her head into Heiken's neck. And then the ash snake wrecks the barrier. Shimmeru gasps in relief, her long dark blue hair flying into her face when she deems it safe to look up again. She still holds onto the other girl's waist. The tremble in Heiken's shoulders grows stronger and she starts cackling madly. Shimmer blinks. Faintly, she realizes they're still moving. However, that doesn't matter. One single thing reaches her senses, her ears, to be precise, and it's Heiken Mamushi's absolutely insane laughter. The way her whole body shudders with it, the way she snorts every once in a while, the way it sounds like a dorky witch's. Redness blossoms on Shimmeru's pale cheeks. She tries to avoid looking at Heiken. Instead, what her eyes land on is the red hem of Heiken's jacket. Shimmeru can't help herself. Maybe it's Heiken's laughter or the shroud of Turanikin imprint of Shimmeru's foundation and black lipstick that is showing on the bright fabric, which is causing her own light giggles to escape. It doesn't matter, what matters is that she laughs. A thing she thought she'd forgotten how to do. And Heiken Mamushi is the reason for it. Before she can dwell on this very disturbing realization, their third teammate's cry echoes through the street. Not even a moment later, Midoriya frantically runs through their field of sight. Right behind him is another team hot on his heels. And behind it is another team that is chasing the one from before. And it's followed by yet another team. Midoriya has somehow managed to gather every single team on a wild goose chase. What the hell? Let's if them up, wo. Heiken bellows, her fist hitting the air triumphantly. The snake obeys immediately, steering sharp to the left. The difference between the other's velocity and the snake's is ridiculous. In no time at all, the gray faux animal reaches its prey. For the effect, Shimmeru presumes, it actually lunges for them instead of just letting them vanish into its large body. Midoriya is the only one standing after the attack. The others are withering on the ground, groaning in pain and discomfort and, in the girl's case, sitting comfortably. The freckled boy pants for air, rips off his face mask and his hood, lets himself sink onto his knees with a long-drawn groan and coughs up a lung afterwards. Nonetheless, his gaze focuses on Heiken and Sora Hoshi. Other teams incapacitated. Winners are Sora Hoshi Shimmeru, Heiken Mamushi and Midoriya Izuku, is declared from the speakers. And Midoriya, the one who berated them so harshly, the one who made Sora Hoshi remember her goal, the one who's just outrun 9 people for who knows how long, gives them a sweet smile. Before falling face first onto the ground, boneless and utterly spent. Shimmeru exchanges a glance with Heiken. Before bursting out laughing again. Izuku's legs hurt. It's like he just absolved 2 soccer matches in a row without ever stopping his running. It's like he's run the big parkour round thrice. That's not to say that he doesn't feel exhilaratingly alive. The adrenaline and his team's victory put a wide smile on his face, now uncovered from goggles, face mask and hood. He sits between Heiken. Call me Moo, you ridiculous Kiwi boy. Why Kiwi? Went unheard by the boisterous girl, and Sora Hoshi. My name is Shimmeru, she hesitantly offered, shyly nodding when he stuttered out, Izuku? as if he were unsure on whether that's really his name or not. Izuku doesn't know why the two of them offered their respective first names, or, in Mu's case, a nickname, but he isn't about to turn down such a nice gesture. Vlad King's silhouette is illuminated by the big TV screens in front of him. They show the second battle of the day, whilst those who were affected by Shimmeru's quirk's skin irritation have been sent to Recovery Girl's office. Basically, what this means is that the three of them are the only ones aside from their teacher in the Dark Observer's room. Should be more awkward than it is. Izuku thinks. There's a sort of satisfied exhaustion clinging to his frame. Vlad King hums, turning his attention from one monitor to another where a broad back clad in gray is seen. Naga crouches a little bit to the side of the camera that's sending the picture to the screen, his neck bent downwards. I wonder what his quirk is. Izuku absent-mindedly mumbles, still watching in mild excitement. He's too spent for a more cheerful exterior right now. No idea, man. Gummy worms. Mu asks, shoving a bag of said gelatinous goods in his hands. Without taking his eyes off the screen, and without really thinking of why and where Mu has kept them on her, the boy grabs a small handful and begins devouring a green-yellow one. Thanks, he says as an afterthought. Then he blends out Mu and Shimmer. He blends out everything else, his mind running a kilometer per second as he focuses on Nagare's descent. Underneath the small one-story building on whose roof he's perched on, a fight between two other students has broken out. Unluckily, Izuku has no idea whether one of them is on the pink-haired boy's team or not. All of a sudden, Naga jumps, landing right next to a broad, navy-skinned shark-teethed girl who seems to be able to extend her neck. Immediately, the handsome one places a hand on her head. And what then happens catches Izuku off guard. The girl's eyes roll up and she just drops. What kind of quirk is that? Most likely an emitter type, has to do with brain functions, mind, or consciousness. He mutters in awe. What an interesting quirk indeed. Looks brutal as F-. Mu comments. But she doesn't seem to be hurt. Shimmeru intervenes. Nagar seems to be able to make it instantaneous. Maybe, though, he could extend the duration of whatever it is. I wonder if it's actually painful, could be a good torture method. Izuku clears his throat when Vlad King sends him a concerned glance over his shoulder. Mu snorts, cackling as the Midoriya starts to blush and splutter. To save the boy's grace, at least the little of it that's left, prompt in that moment the other students start trickling in again, looking a bit tired for wear but much better now that the red blotches on their skin are gone. A tall, really buff guy with red skin, who reminds Izuku a bit of a traditional depicted Japanese tengu, heads over and drops little bundles of gummy bears on each of their laps. I asked Recovery Girl if I could take some of them with me for 1A, but she gave me 3 of those. Izuku decides to disregard being called 1A. Firstly kiwi and now 1A. Also, at the rate he's getting candy, he'll be overweight in no time. To hell with it. He chews on the bears, immediately feeling his overused muscles relax. Wait a minute. From Recovery Girl? Did she kiss each one of them, or how does that work? Is her spit in those, or why are they relieving his pain? Alright, Izuku thinks with a grimace, better not to ask about that. He doesn't want to be mentally scarred because of gummy bears of all things. Suddenly he's stricken with a thought. Where are his manners? His mom would be so incredibly disappointed. So, he puts on a bright smile and says, "Thank you," but he halts mid-sentence as he doesn't know the other's name. Talk about hypocrisy, huh? Otakebe Funk. The muscle package says with a grin. Thank you, Otakebe. I'm Midoriya Izuku. I know 1A. Otakebe guffaws lightheartedly, making Izuku die inside just a little. He's not going to get rid of his nicknames, is he? Maybe he should just surrender and call himself the 1A hero, Kiwi. Other teams incapacitated. Winners are Nagar Kokoro, Shirokuro and Bao Agma. How the hell has he missed an entire fight in the span of 3 minutes? Staring at the winning team displayed on the monitor, he notices the lack of any evidence for an occurred battle. The 3 of them seem perfectly fine, one of them even bored. And he'll have to duel one of them. Their teacher turns to them. You will join the other winning team right away. A gloved hand motions for them to return to the faux city. Izuku's stomach begins to churn. It's certainly not because of the gummies. He's a little bit intimidated. This is an entirely new situation for him. Of course he's had taekwondo tournaments, in which he managed to best some very tough opponents before he eventually ended up losing to someone more experienced. But this? To fight one-on-one against somebody else who harbors the dream of becoming a hero? Someone who, most likely, has trained just as hard as he has? Someone, on top of that, who can freely use their quirk? Well, no wonder his heart's thumping faster at the prospect. Despite that, he's also ecstatic, all of his otherwise nervous energy bundled in the exciting idea of having his first real fight that's specifically targeted towards bringing him closer to his goal. Diamond, you're thriving, aren't you? Mu pokes him in the upper arm as they're heading into the battle arena again. He sends her a broad grin, his steps becoming bouncy. Hi, he giggles. Hi, whispers Shimaru questioningly. You know what? That's how it's done, Kiwi. We're ready to throw some hands, yeah? The shorter girl yells encouragingly. Yeah. Izuku cries back, apparently having forgotten about his anxious nature. Only for a moment. Then he has to wince as his own voice resounds in his ears. They arrive at the bottom of the staircase, the other three winners coming into sight. Izuku glosses over Naga, and he has to admit it's hard because the boy's glaringly pink hair keeps trying to draw his attention as he takes in the other two. He assumes Shirokuro is the person clad in a pantomime getup. In all honesty, he's not sure what gender they have as they sport quite the androgynous looks. Their high ponytail whips around as their dark eyes meet Izuku's. A warm smile stretches Shiro's, or Kuro's, black painted lips grotesquely far up, somehow managing to convey goofiness instead of Joker vibes. Izuku answers with a nod before he assesses the third in Nagare's group. It's the literal devil. No, for real. Two small horns grow from Bao Agma's head, a pointed, black, thin tail that protrudes from his lower back swishes lazily. Two demonic wings that are definitely by all laws of physics too small to carry a human being twitch in anticipation while Bao's red eyes, surrounded by black scara, muster Izuku's team. The devilish boy has left behind his previous air of indifference for sure. Izuku's heart flutters. A storm swirls in his innards until they're reduced to a mess of pure anxiousness. Who will he fight against? Who can he win against? Nagare's quirk is an absolute unknown aside from the activation mechanics. He doesn't know if he could recover from it if he were hit by it. Also, Izuku has no long-range weapons in his arsenal, which means he has to get real close to his opponent. In Nagare's case, this would be incredibly dangerous and dumb. If Izuku's matched up against him, though, there's nearly no other way he could best him. It's speed he will have to rely on. Luckily, now that his legs are healed, Izuku can maybe somehow wing it. But that's only if he is paired up against Nagar. If he has to go up against Bao or Shiro, Izuku has no idea how they fight. Absolutely none. All the footage he's watched has either focused on other teams or on the handyman. Bao has a tail, if he could control it. But no, Izuku shouldn't assume things before the fight starts. Ouch, the freckled boy hisses, rubbing his upper arm. Why moo? He shoots her a betrayed look that the slightly shorter girl counters with her own unimpressed eyebrow raise. Don't mumble yourself into an early grave, Kiwi, she advises. Izuku's mouth closes automatically. This habit of his is a DMN pain in the butt. All right, boys and girls. Shiro gestures animatedly to themselves after Vlad-sensei's greeting. The man clears his throat and begins anew. Sorry for that. All right, people. I have drawn lots and paired you up at random. The first match is Sora Hoshi Shimaru against Bao Agma. Second one's Heiken Mamushi against Nagar Kokoro and, last but not least, Midoriya Izuku against Shiro Kuro. The round ends when either one of you gives up, gets too injured or flies out of the bounds the helper bots have marked with holograms. Seriously. They bought those DMN things again. They were so fragile last year and cost so much, god damn it, Nedzu. Anyways, Sora Hoshi and Bao, please head into the bounds. You others sit down on the provided bench. Izuku, Mu, and Shimuru exchange awkward glances at Vlad King's budget rant, but Bao and Nagar snicker at its ridiculousness, and Shiro mimics laughing. The devil and the blue-haired girl then obediently walk to their destination while Izuku and Mamushi sit down next to each other on the aforementioned bench. "Good luck, Shimuru," Izuku calls after her. Mu adds, "Beat the devil out of him, girlie. I think you basically instructed her to kill him." Izuku murmurs. Yellow unslitted eyes blink sheepishly. "Oopsie," Shimuru nods thankfully with a tiny smile. "Come my man, you got this." Nagar roars from his seat next to Mu, and Shiro gives their third teammate a good luck thumbs up. Yeah. Bao drawls unimpressed. The two of them come to face each other in the boxing ring akin marked out battlefield. Cute little robots, that Izuku coos at internally, hold up the hologram projectors with their hands, one in each corner of the square. He watches entranced as, after their teacher begins the match, Bao rushes forward so swiftly and with such a high velocity that Izuku's surprised Shimuru manages to dodge the frontal attack. All pretenses have fallen from the boy, his laziness vanished, his bored expression given leeway to a concentrated face. But Bao isn't the only one who has changed in such short amount of time. Shimuru's smirk sends a shiver down Izuku's spine. His teammate resembles a murderous goddess intent on sending Bao back to hell where he belongs. Alright, maybe he's being a bit too dramatic, but really, the amount of seriousness during this mock fight astounds him. The girl seems to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Most people wouldn't notice it, but she's not making a tight fist. Instead, she's producing a few of her stars, and Izuku has guessed her intention right because when Bao hurls himself towards Shimuru, she remains still until the very last second. Then, in a flurry, she hurls those tiny hellish metal stars right in the boy's face. What? Izuku stares open-mouthed. All noise has been reduced to a buzz as he watches Bao's black-red hair flies backwards, his head ducking right underneath Shimuru's star's trajectory. He balances on his tail. The thin black rod is a lot sturdier than Izuku's anticipated. Bao jumps up with the help of it and aims a punch right at Shimuru's nose. She dodges, grabbing his fist midair. A yowl of pain from Bao makes Izuku guess Shimuru has just in that moment decided to grow one of her stars out of the palm with which she's holding Bao's fist. Ugh, that must have hurt them both. It's the factor of surprise that the pale girl is aiming for, though. And she has it. For 1 second, the devil is distracted by the unexpected burning ache, and that's when Shimuru strikes. Her boot-clad foot lands in Bao's stomach, sending him careening backwards. In the air, Bao cleverly uses his small wings to stop his flight. Steadying himself against one of the marker bots, he drawls with an unhinged smile that could have easily been seen on Aizawa's mouth. "You aren't bad at all." Shimuru flicks her long midnight blue hair back. "Same to you," she says. Bao recovers quickly, and as soon as he appears ready to continue, Shimuru steadies herself once more. But he doesn't attempt to do the same move a second time. No, he begins running circles around his opponent, getting speedier with every second until he's just a blur. He's using his tail and wings to propel himself forward. Can't keep that up for long, 'cause his muscles are gonna protest pretty soon. Izuku thinks out loud, gaining an appreciative nod courtesy of Shiro, whose eyes are straining to stay on the fight in front of them. Just as predicted, Bao shoots out of a random direction towards Shimuru. She doesn't see it coming. Can't see it coming in all honesty. He's too fast for her. Izuku winces when her body's flung over the blue hologram and crashes to the ground. Automatically, he rises from his seat and rushes towards his teammate. "God, are you okay?" he asks, but it's so fast it sounds more like, "God, are you gay?" And that's. But Shimuru lets out a pathetic groan. Her hair has been blown into her face. "Hurts," she grumbles and has to cough right after, "Got him." Mu, who kneels at her other side and slowly helps her steady herself, frowns in confusion. "Huh. Think you should. Bring him to recovery, girl," the gothic girl rasps out haltingly. Izuku opens his mouth, but reflexively, he cranes his neck to check on Bao. And for FS sake, that boy doesn't look good. He's whimpering, clutching his stomach where his dark hero costume's torn apart due to some of Shimuru's burning stars literally having been rammed into the flesh of his abdomen. "Sheet," the Midoriya curses. I don't know who's won that, but both are K.O so. I called Recovery Girl, she's on her way. In the meantime, please remain calm. We are going to continue our matches shortly. Holy shit, what's up with those little monsters? It's always Yamada's class that's the absolute FNG worst, I can't believe it. Oh, the mix still. PFFD Shimaru snorts. Leaning against a fake house's wall, she's at least more stable than on the ground. Vlad-sensei's such a dork. She slurs and Izuku and Mamushi share an alarmed look as their third starts laughing airily. I think she doesn't feel so good. Mu provides unhelpfully, scratching the back of her unruly black mop head. I think Bao doesn't feel so good. Izuku adds, eyes wandering between the delusional girl and the now crying boy. Then, they really went at it, didn't they? Well, you were the one who told her to beat the devil out of him so. They look at Bao. They look at Shimmer. They look at each other. Izuku begins giggling and Mu isn't far behind. You know what, Kiwi? Mu says between bouts of laughter, you really aren't a bad one. Not at all. Izuku smiles. Degree. Please take it slow for the next hours. Here are some gummies, dear. But I already. Shimmeru tries to intervene, holding up her small bag she'd previously gotten from Otakebe. Take it, dear. I don't dash. Dear. Note to himself, Recovery Girl is absolutely not to be messed with. Izuku watches with a weird fascination as she rips out Shimmeru's quirk from Bao's stomach while she kisses him at the same time. He's never seen such an accurate representation of the phrase, carrot and stick, before. Bao doesn't even have time to cry as he's immediately healed by, essentially himself. Now that we have those two cared for, we'll go ahead with our exercise. Nagar and Heiken, it's your turn. Recovery Girl, please stay on standby. Recovery Girl nods sagely and sits down where Mu sat previously. Destroy him. Izuku pumps his fist in the air. A cough from the professional heroine and a pout from Nag are let him recoil hastily. Take care. This time, the fist pump is a lot less enthusiastic. Shimmeru's barely able to lift her head, much less to encourage the other girl. Nonetheless, Mu seems to get the gist as she flashes Izuku and Shimmeru a grin. Then she heads into the boxing ring. Nagare's pink irises follow her movements. He's not as serious as Bao'd been, however, he isn't taking this lightly either. Go! Maybe, Izuku thinks deadpan, randomizing the thing wasn't Vlad King's best idea. Imagine, Nagar Kokoro, a guy whose quirk most definitely involves direct contact with his enemy against Heiken Mamushi who can pull a gigantic ash snake out of thin air. It's the ultimate short versus long-range battle. But poor Nagar hasn't been able to really prepare for such a scenario. And it shows. Man, this hurts to watch. Izuku mumbles sympathetically as the handsome boy is chased by the snake. There he goes, running out of the bounds because he tries to avoid being consumed by the ashen creature. The winner is Heiken Mamushi. That was so lame, dude. You gotta build a spear or something into your repertoire. Mu rants after dissolving her quirk. A spear? Or like a bow. Or a rifle, the girl exclaims, then turning away from the befuddled Nagar. A rifle? Izuku hears him repeat quietly. But he ignores the other's incredulousness as he throws little glances at Shirokuro who musters him unabashedly. Now for the last duel. Shirokuro against Midoriya Izuku. Please. I guess you get the gist by now. Go! Shiro waves their hand. Because Izuku's polite, he waves back. For some reason, Shiro sends a judging look his way. It was their quirk. They activated their quirk and Izuku waved back like an absolute moron. Swallow me, ground. Swallow me and never let me go. He tries to overplay his embarrassment by starting an attack with his baseball bat ready to strike. Shiro does the odd motion again right before Izuku's bat hits them. It's a wall. Shiro can mime an invisible wall into existence and he has just pretty much used his own force against himself. Painful tremors run up his forearms. Izuku's face mask has gone back to hiding his mouth and his goggles obscure his eyes. At least his opponent hasn't seen his reaction because of that, and Izuku can play his pain off. He hits the barrier again, lighter to assess whether it's still there or not. Quirks like that often have set duration times, and Izuku thinks it can't be running for long because Shiro has had to renew it once already. One more time he hits the invisible wall until Shiro does the wave motion. About 10 seconds then. Now the question remains whether this shields them from all sides or just from the front. To find that out, Izuku runs, inspired by Bao, in a circle around his opponent, striking the air from all sides. Nope, he doesn't feel any resistance. The boy then decides to up his velocity and get in a hit from behind. Shiro's a lot slower than Izuku is. They don't come across as very athletic. Izuku's bat swings. It nearly meets its target but Shiro walks on air. A pantomime quirk. Oh my god, how exciting is that? Holy shit, that's so rare. The last known pantomime quirked hero died around 60 years ago, and she was European. What a cool power. I wonder what they can do with it? Can they create anything only invisible? Or does it have limits? Midoriya, please refrain from going off on a tangent. Your opponent has stood still for the last minute just to give you a chance of snapping out of it. Izuku only closes his mouth in absolute horror. It's true. He's been rambling in the middle of a duel, might he add, and what the hell must Shiro think of him? Firstly, he waves back stupidity, and now he has just started analyzing their quirk like a total creep. It's a wonder Mu and Shimmeru still talk to him. Vlad King clears his throat. Finally, he's able to completely clear his head. A quick plan forms in Izuku's overheated brain as he fiddles his rope out of its holder. Shiro's wary eyes trail his every movement. With his bat in his one hand and the rope in his other one, the green-haired one starts to run once again. Not in a circle but straight behind Shiro, who can use their stare technique a second time. But that's exactly what Izuku anticipates. Swiftly, he forms a loose noose with his rope, spins around and he catches the other's foot in it. Tripping them midair, they flounder for a solid second before having no choice but to land on their hands. Izuku's heart speeds up, eustress hammering against his ribs as he sits down on Shiro's back. He uses the rope to bind their hands, and just as he's about to do the same for their feet, Shiro throws one of their legs up in Izuku's direction. The Midoriya thinks before the immense pain of that last-effort attack on his enemy's part engulfs him, they don't need their hands to use their quirk. Makes sense. Fuck. Shiro Kuro wins, he hears. But why would Vlad-sensei say that when Izuku has? When Izuku has? Yeah, what did he actually do? There are bright lights dancing in his field of vision that remind him of Shimmeru's stars. What? Dude, someone says. Someone else yells something. Izuku closes his eyes and just listens to the dark drums roaring in his ears. Degree. What did you mime? You knocked me out cold with it? I'm impressed, by the way. I'm just curious what exactly it was. Shiro holds their face in their hands. You don't have to be ashamed. It can't be that bad, I'm sure. Izuku reassures. They shake their head, floppy black ponytail waggling left and right. With one hand they slowly grab their whiteboard and write down what they used to destroy the entirety of Class 1A. An elephant. Shimmeru, who's been feeling a lot better, albeit more tired, reads out loud slowly. Shiro hides their face again. Degree. Izuku packs his stuff in a snail's pace. With every arm movement his poor abused muscles, that have been nearly pierced by a whole imaginary elephant's tusks, mind you, groan in protest. He's so glad for Recovery Girl's presence, and he now considers her to be number 3 on his favorite heroes list, right behind his personal number 1, Sir Night Eye, and his close number 2, All Might. How ironic. He's the only one left in the boys' locker room, as everyone else has already been dismissed with their small amounts of battle damage. Even Bao had recovered quite well by the end of the lesson. That makes Izuku the sole exception. Maybe because he's exhausted his legs like crazy prior to his match against Shiro. When he's finally done packing, he hugs his dark blue backpack carefully with one arm to his chest. He doesn't think he could carry the thing on his actual back right now. Izuku walks out of the building slower than usual, but at least he can listen to his Another Day Ends playlist while doing so, Songs to let the day end and soothe himself are mixed with nature's early evening sounds. So he wanders a while. Every so often, a flare of discomfort makes him flinch, but the pain gradually eases. He notices the early evening sky, colored in a beautiful orange-yellow and pinkish cloudy gradient, extends endlessly over Izuku's head. While the day had been fairly hot, now a cool wind mouths at his bare-skinned forearm. Oh, don't be scared about it. Don't forget it was real. Do you remember the way it made you feel? Jared James, do you remember? Izuku hums the tune, has to stop when for a single moment his back rebels harsher than before. His head hurts in response before the pain calms down. Ugh, that Shiro truly has a terrifying quirk. What one could do with such a power. Not that he should fantasize about having a quirk. It only makes him kind of tired to think he's at such a disadvantage. Abruptly, he comes to a halt. His thoughts stop. His breath stops. Even his music seems to stop. He's on top of a bridge. And he's feeling it again. The thing he's felt in the train. The enormous discomfort. The feeling that shouldn't be. There's a deer right in front of him. Standing on the asphalt, it raises its head in a greeting, almost. Izuku doesn't feel well. How could this be? How could the same deer he's created in his mind appear right before him? You don't need to worry. A voice says. It's the deer's. You don't have to worry about not having a quirk for your chosen path. The deer says deceptively calm. Because your chosen path does not exist. It tells him in the same unnerving tone. Its beady eyes quell out of its skull. They're melting onto the pavement, and they roll towards Izuku's shoes. Black irises judge him, watch him from below, something that shouldn't be. Every hero has once been a breathing human. But breathing humans can't be heroes. It says. Izuku can't breathe. Izuku wakes up. He's lying on a bench. Gasping for air, he looks around in confusion. Shit, he only wanted to quickly sit down, and now he's dreamt that. A shudder runs down his spine. That felt real and surreal at the same time, a paradox of an experience. He heads home. And ignores that he can't remember sitting down. Degree. Makino-sensei, I understand that you're now training to become a hero. However, I would appreciate it if you could write me beforehand when you are planning on not attending a lesson. Izuku lets his head plop down onto his pillow. He'd completely forgotten about his parkour lesson after his second strange experience in less than 2 days. It's the stress that's surely getting to him, he guesses. Also, he doesn't think he even could have appeared, as he'd been too tired to have his eyes open for long, and his body was aching still when he'd lied down on his bed. Heaving himself up into a sitting position, he risks a look at his mobile phone's inbuilt clock. 11 at night. Izuku, I'm sorry, sensei. It won't happen again. He types out fast in response. He listens to the crickets chirping outside his window, lets himself be lulled by their never-ending monotonous song as he massages his slightly aching head with clammy fingers. The night is stifling. He wonders how he'd even slept in the heat of his room whilst wearing the majority of his school uniform. Sweat pearls roll down his back. Izuku quickly pulls off his white dress shirt and puts it aside. The pants come next. And then he's sitting on his bed half naked. Just sitting. Nothing more. His eyes are unfocused and he doesn't think. For the first time in. Well, he doesn't know how long it's been, but he doesn't remember when it had last happened. For the first time in forever, his head stays empty. There's seemingly nothing inside but a big and silent void. Izuku doesn't want there to be anything in its stead. The thoughts he'd have would revolve around those weird occurrences, and he'd rather remain a shell for a couple of seconds. He drifts. More than a few seconds. A single conscious but hazy gaze leaves him with an impression of his kitchen. Then he's eating a bowl of cereal. Maybe the taste of chocolate filling his mouth slightly pulls him back to reality. Didn't know I could do that, he thinks, staring still somewhat absent-mindedly at the slowly browning milk. I didn't do it. Not by myself. It just happened, he adds internally. Like so many things nowadays tend to happen to him. Like the man on the train and the bowl shatters on the floor. Izuku's hands have abandoned him. They're shaking, and can't do anything else. Helplessly, he sinks down on his knees, trying to reach for the larger shards. But his hands don't work. They tremble instead, harsher at the memory of a soulless eye rolling towards him, harsher at the memory of the feeling that had befallen his body in the train. Izuku swallows, although his throat's painfully dry. The Midoriyas. Ears don't acknowledge the nearing, shuffling footsteps of Inko's bunny-themed slippers on the hallway's tiles. Izuku? Inko asks into the room. He laughs. It's a borderline hysterical thing. Oh, Mom. Had a little bit of an accident here. Forcing his hands into obeying, he collects the shards. Since when does he let himself be intimidated? His fingers cease their unwanted movement. Calmness settles in, gaining strength with each further deep breath he takes. Are you sure everything's all right? His mom doesn't sound convinced in the slightest. There's a tiny waver in her voice, which festers guilt on his tongue that tastes like the bitterest coffee in existence. Izuku brings himself to smile. Yeah, he quips, internally wincing at the faux cheerfulness. I was just a bit clumsy. I don't know, maybe my muscles are still a bit overtaxed. Heroics sure are exhausting, I can tell you that. His mother's shoulders sag down, a sign she believes him. Oh, well then, she sighs in relief, just don't stay up too late. Try to catch some sleep, dear. With that and a quick hug, she retreats back to her bedroom. Izuku's still working on breathing without falling into that overwhelming feeling of dread. It's hard. Harder than it should be. He should be fine. It was just a dream. A really weird one, mind you, but still. The man on the train? Like he'd already put together, that was probably just a guy who, even in his old age, or maybe because of his age, can't control his fear-based quirk. That's it. The tiles are comfortingly cool under his sweaty palms. He sat down once more on the floor after having disposed of the shards and remaining cereal. Izuku rests his hands on the tiles that have little specks of light gray mixed into their creamy white. It grounds him. It steadies him. He feels a bit like a cloud threatening to be swiped away by the slightest hint of wind. Or like a misty fog lying heavily on an open field. Both at the same time. Airy but dense and choking. This is your place, your safe place. He suddenly hears Aizawa-sensei's voice, describing to him the sunny forest inside his head. It's his safe place. In the shadow-casting light of the kitchen, he lies down in only his boxer briefs and shudders as his sweaty hot back hits the cold stone. Here, he can almost think of the light as the sun above him when he closes his eyes. There are no rays of warm sunlight, but he'll make do with what he has. A sunny forest. It smells fresh, so fresh. The tree trunks are lined perfectly, just chaotically enough to be natural but close together and yet giving one another space to grow. Lush green grass pops out from a couple of spots near protruding roots. Otherwise, he lies in a heap of fallen leaves of various shades of brown. Izuku's almost astonished at the peace this place harbors. Almost. Before he remembers, he chooses this peace. It's his. His place and his peace. Nobody and nothing, no strange old men nor any odd rotting deer, is going to destroy what he has here. Mentally, Izuku reaches for the sun that shines through the crowns of the trees. And, simultaneously, he reaches for the few clouds in the sky. There weren't any the last time he'd been in here. He knows why but doesn't want to think about it. Instead, he lets his ears perceive the chirps of those two robins. Izuku is at ease. The deer is gone. Degree. You, good sir, Mu says, dropping her lunch in front of Izuku's bento box, look like absolute sheet. Somehow, Shimaru and Mu have managed to carter him off to the cafeteria even though today's probably the worst day for something like the existence of noises in general. That's what he gets for passing out on his bed like a big old noodle and waking up in the middle of the night. Izuku's head is beating like a jungle drum, tum-tum-tum-tum-tum, and the eyes of 1,000,000,100,000,000,000 UA students stick on him. Oh, a whole 1,000,000,000,100,000,000,000, the blue-haired girl quips dryly. Oh, that's what Izuku's wanted, his habit breaking out at random again. Just a whole 1,000,000,100,000,000,000. And I know I look bad, he grumbles into his carrots. Like a diamond corpse, kiwi. A kiwi corpse, if you will. Mu sagely nods and Shimaru hides a grin. She's really not that great at pretending she doesn't find the snake girl funny. It's kind of cute, really. But Izuku's not in the mood for anything right now, other than his soft and comfortable bed at home, naturally. Until he reaches his destination, he'll have to endure another hour of English after lunch. Incredible. Just what he needs to make this day absolutely perfect. An hour with present Mike. Moo grunts between bites of her chocolate croissant. I dunno what you have against Mike. I'm also rather at a loss on why you dislike him, the starry girl adds after taking a sip of her fruity tea. It's not that I hate him. Izuku defends lamely, it's just. I told him to shut up right in front of his own class and then he left me to the wolves. We started off our relationship just as weirdly. Have I told you about my classroom? Mix decorated it. And he doesn't stop. I thought he was done when I met Aizawa sensei there yesterday, but today I came in and found a Statue of Liberty by the door. Like, at least as tall as Otakebe. Scared the living daylights out of me when I came in. And there was a Christmas tree in another corner of the room and a bunch of other stuff I couldn't even identify. He's sending out strange and conflicting signals, is what I mean. He finishes with a sigh. Oh yeah, that does sound like something he'd do. He's passive-aggressive as F-, no joke. I sometimes listen to his podcasts online. Yeah? Last time he'd invited a hero who made a very not okay SXL comment and dash. You mean Aodine? Izuku interrupts. Moo nods. Exactly that one. The whole podcast was just Mike's sensei passively ripping the guy to shreds. He even had to have a smoke break at one point. You know what Mike did during those 5 minutes? Dude just goes ahead and covers I Can't Decide by the Scissor Sisters. What I want to say is I know he's weird, totally, but also kind of a savage and I'm living for it, not gonna lie. Shimuru raises her eyebrows at the story. Really? And here I thought he was just innocently excited, like yipping puppy. No. That beach is all bark all bite. He once got into a fist fight with a villain who had claws and sensei won without his quirk. Yellow eyes look at Izuku. That's why I know Kiwi's gonna be terrifying some day. Said boy blinks tiredly up at her, having nodded off a couple of times. Someday. Moo emphasizes, swinging her water bottle at Shimuru when she huffs out amusedly at the ironic imagery. All of a sudden, someone shouts, "That's him," and half of the cafeteria stills in gossipy interest. At first, Izuku doesn't think much of it. Why should he? He hasn't done anything to warrant a yell, for sure. His mistake. Obviously he's meant. Literally anybody else other than him? Izuku's the target of everything, including the aforementioned loud exclamation. Before he knows it, he's staring at 3 upper-year students. One of them is hiding underneath the nearest table, but the Midoriya immediately recognizes him. It's the guy whose nose he's broken. That combo of elf ears and indigo hair is unmistakable. Izuku sits up straighter. Moo and Shimuru have stopped their present mic banter and instead warily eye the large blonde ponytailed student whose face remains deceptively friendly. So, you're the one who broke Tamaki's nose? He asks very politely. Izuku-kun would never do something like that. Shimuru answers coldly. Moo glowers at him. Kiwi wouldn't. She agrees. And Izuku wants to disappear. Hesitantly, under the guy's scrutinizing gaze and his friend's wrongly deserved backup, he stutters out. It's about that. Shimuru and Moo whip around to face him. What? Both of them say at the same time. See, I didn't do it intentionally. Izuku tries to explain. The third stranger student, a girl with light blue hair, tilts her head confusedly. Huh? She asks not unkindly but certainly curiously, you accidentally broke Tamakuin's nose? How do you accidentally break someone's nose? How weird. Weird. The blonde one enunciates with a false smile, each word dripping in venom. Me Mirio, the victim of Izuku's extreme jazz hands whispers, I think he might have done it accidentally, like he says. But how? How? The girl questions in the background, again and again whilst bouncing slightly from left to right and right to left. Izuku's so tired. Good. Everyone's watching. Everyone. The only reason he hasn't already fled to his secret hideout, also known as the boys' toilets, is that his mind is too mushy and sleep-deprived to conjure up enough anxiety. Whether that's a good or bad thing is yet to be decided. For now, he gesticulates with his nose-breaking arms during a badly murmured retelling of the event. Swazlik hemmending my own business on listening to music, right? Wanted to ask for that. I'm turning around so fast cause I'm startled and then I accidentally broke his nocio godimzo soria when terapolagizi and help other sal reedy running away from and he was a fast and he couldn't catch you dash. Oh, that's where I know your voice from. You were the guy having an existential crisis on the toilet yesterday. The ponytailed student, Mirio, declares triumphantly and hits his own palm with his other hand's fist. Undoubtedly, a great mystery has just been solved. I want to die. Izuku says to no one in particular with Shimaru patting his back comfortingly. On the toilet? An existential crisis on the toilet? You're a silly little man. And a miserable little man. The older girl tilts her head once again. Mirio's expression shifts, becoming gentler. I believe you about your accident with Tamaki. You obviously have a lot of problems. What's that supposed to mean? Mu grumbles half-heartedly but Mirio doesn't pick up on it. If there's anything I can do for you, come to me. I'm from Class 2B, Tagada Mirio the name. Bury Izuku. Bury him far out in the woods where nobody will ever find his body. Mirio has fallen into a saving people state. Because he probably thinks Izuku's a madman or riddled with suicidal fantasies about becoming the earth itself. Or both. His manners kick in before he can stop them. I'm Midoriya Izuku, Class 1A. Ah, so you're the infamous single student of 1A. That explains it, I guess. The bell rings. Oops. Well, as I've said, come to me if you have any troubles. Mu drags him into English and Shimaru keeps sending him worried glances. He honestly doesn't care anymore. Izuku is absolutely done with this day. Fucking hell. He cursed but didn't put any real heart in it. His cigarette hung limply in one side of his mouth, the lighter spluttering out pathetic glints that died quickly. He tried getting the thing to work, just in case, you know? But, no matter how many times he clicked on the mechanism, nothing much happened other than bringing forth more of the aforementioned sparks. Shaking his head, he resorted to heading to a konbini later on. For now, he'd have to live without comforting smoke filling up his lungs to stop the thoughts heading his way. To that BS dirty. He clenched his teeth hard at the mere memory of him. Muchi-san, a neutral voice asked. It came out of thin air and had no visible owner. He knew it'd be coming but it still took him by surprise. It's the instincts, one can't help it. They made him tense up and revert to his fighting stance before the voice breathed out a laugh and it made click. This had to be Daremo. Nobody at all. Muchi-jaku forced himself to relax. His mouth shrunk to its normal size and when it wasn't a gaping hole any longer, he hesitantly spoke up, Yes? Are you Daremo? It was disconcerting to talk to someone who had no presence. Most people with invisibility quirks had warmth or smell or something to offer that made them stand out from unoccupied space. Daremo didn't. Daremo truly lived up to their street name. They were nothing. One could only notice them through their directionless words. Jaku thought briefly about leading such a life, completely apart from everyone else. What a shoddy existence that'd be, he thought. That I am. The voice spoke again, drifting wobbly into different directions as it did so. In the beginning, Jaku heard it to his left, in the middle it was to his right and at the end it hovered above him. A shudder ran down his spine at the sensation the voice left as it hung in the atmosphere without truly sticking. Good, Jaku said, to reassure himself. It was a good thing that he'd been granted an audience with the infamous Daremo. It had to be. I need you to dash. My prices are high, Muchi-san. They interrupted nonchalantly, that you should know before you state your request. Jaku swallowed, firming his stance. I know you aren't cheap. But I also know you're the best and stealthiest in your field. No matter the price, I'm willing to pay if you end his career. Very well then, Muchi-san. I think for this instance 500,000 yen will do. Daremo whispered into his right, left ear, leaving nausea behind them. 500,000? Well. All right. If it ensures his downfall, then yes, I'll pay the sum, he meekly agreed. Jaka breathed out in a shudder as that thing, that was no human, whispered just behind him, half of it now and the other half when it's done, moo dash. It came now from under him, chi dash. And then it ended in his face, san. Oh, that okay, he was prepared for this. Jiren had told him as much, don't come with anything under 300 grand. DM's gonna pull your whole bank account apart, not gonna lie. And he'd taken it seriously. Simply hadn't dared not to heed to the broker's words. The fact alone that he had to resort to such measures, to book an appointment with one of the most mysterious vigilantes, or did they already count as a villain, was incredibly humbling in a sense. This was not Jaku's world. In fact, it was the opposite. But it could become it if his ratings dropped even further. There was no doubt about it. He'd vanish from the media. Well, first there'd be the reduction of price on his few pieces of merchandise. Then there'd be the drop in the popularity polls, and he'd only been able to reach number 210 in his 5-year-long career. He was already a face among many. A hero nobody would recall in a few years. Maybe some die-hard fans would recognize his name, but they'd probably not really remember any of his feats. He'd always tried his best. Whenever the big names would destroy local businesses that couldn't afford the high villain destruction insurance, he was the first one offering a hand in rebuilding them for a couple of bucks, sometimes even for free. Not only would he become obsolete, no, he'd lose his existence. He'd lose everything he'd ever worked for. Muchijaku sealed the deal by handing Dare Mo, an unknown even in the midst of less-than-legal circles, 250.000 yen. That was on the 17th of April 2238, a Tuesday. Dare Mo stayed behind and watched as their new client headed home. They shuffled through the wad of bills, once again, with a broad and satisfied grin on their invisible lips. They heard a noise near them, something that sounded a lot like hooves clacking on pavement. A shiver went down their spine. A feeling that shouldn't be. Curious. They weren't exactly caught off guard, but still. To make someone like them a ghost in their own right, unsettled, was a great feat. A skeletal stallion materialized in front of their eyes. "And who may you be?" they asked, a little awestruck at the sudden appearance. Their voice was for once almost tangible, in a way where one would be able to point to where they were standing. They had forgotten to let it drift. "What will you do with your client's target?" the stallion asked, fixating them with a cold stare. "What does a horse care about my work?" the vigilante replied amusedly. "I have many interests," came as a vague answer. "My codex is show, don't tell. I won't kill, that is all I will say." "Interesting. I will watch your steps." The stallion vanished. Dare Mo sighed. Went home. They had a sibling to take care of. Bills to pay. It SCKD, being an adult. But that horse. That Fianji horse just wouldn't leave their thoughts. Degree. Tell me what you could have done better. Thursday has Izuku sinking further into the beanbag as he ponders. It's his first lesson in underground heroics, and Aizawa-sensei surprised him by explaining they wouldn't head into combat right away. He then showed the Midoriya a video on a very beaten-up laptop. It was his performance in Vlad King's class. When the one-on-one with Shiro came, he covered his face in embarrassment as Izuku proceeded to replicate the pantomime's quirk activation. Aizawa-sensei had to hide his mouth in his scarf, but Izuku clearly noticed how hard the hero was trying to suppress a laugh. What could he have done better? I shouldn't have fanboyed over Shiro's quirk like that. That was unprofessional and stupid. It made me vulnerable. Izuku admits. Eraserhead hums in agreement. True. What else? I grew flustered when Vlad-sensei tried to set me straight, which cost me even more time and jumbled my thoughts? Also true. And? Izuku's forehead wrinkles as he mentally goes through the duel. What did he do wrong? What made him lose in the first place? What was it that, right in that one moment he lost, hadn't he? I didn't put any weight on their legs, even though I already knew they could mime stuff with them too. I sat down on their back and leaned forward instead, and that was what made it possible for Shiro to send an attack at me. Had I distributed my body weight evenly on all critical spots, I'd have had a better chance of winning. To see whether he's gotten it right, he turns to his teacher who grins at him. Still very unsettling but also reassuring in this case. The man nods. 100% correct. I'm also sure you would have actually won had you done so. In fact, I want to show you something. Aizawa-sensei stands up from his yellow beanbag, works out a couple of cricks in his fingers and back and finally motions Izuku to rise as well. The 1A classroom is just big enough to fit a small training area, designed by Present Mike, as is everything in this very confusingly, but endearingly, decorated space. But, so far, they haven't used it. Now it seems like it will be christened by whatever Aizawa-sensei wants to do. The teacher lies down on his stomach. I want you to try to subdue me. Do it correctly, like you would have done with Shiro, had you not lost your cool. Izuku cringes a little when he follows Aizawa's orders and pins the man down. He feels rather awkward doing it, to be honest, but at least Aizawa isn't one for unnecessary, and in this case uncomfortable, remarks. Izuku's sure Present Mike would have somehow found a way to make it weird. So he carefully and slowly covers all, in his opinion, critical points that'd allow his teacher to fight himself out of Izuku's control. When he thinks he's done, he says so and Aizawa, unpredictably, starts to thrash around like one of those American mechanical riding bulls that had become popular in Japan during the late 21st century. Truly, it feels like a rodeo and Izuku's lips wobble as the image of Aizawa-sensei with bull horns and himself in typical cowboy costume enters his head without any permission at all. He struggles momentarily at the abrupt in and decrease of movement but, all the same, he keeps his teacher well restrained until, a couple of minutes later, the man's forehead hits the training mat and he completely slumps under Izuku's grip. Thinking the exercise is over, the boy goes to stand up, which of course, turns out to be the worst FING idea he's ever had as Aizawa quickly takes advantage, turns and twists. Izuku lands on his back with an oof, staring dazedly at his homeroom teacher who stands above him with his usual grin. Did I say the exercise was over? No, I didn't. Rule number 1 of surviving underground business: don't assume. Always be sure that your enemy is incapable of fighting back. Izuku huffs out a small laugh. Okay, you got me. I won't make the same mistake twice. Aizawa nods. Make sure you don't. Now, up with you. I'll show you a thing or two about proper and improper technique. After another hour of calculated motions and tricks, Izuku can say for sure that underground heroics is his favorite class. He may or may not have asked for intimidation tactics next lesson next week, and Aizawa-sensei may or may not have cackled like a maniac at hearing the prompt. Sure, why not? Degree. Mu and Shimuru have invaded his phone's contacts. Izuku lies on his room's floor, his thighs leaning against his bed as he gently kicks his legs back and forth, and he listens to his general playlist as he writes with both of the girls in their newly created Tide TM group. Hardcore Heroes. Hydra Bomb. Wanna go to the movies with me gooies? Sunday? Van Gogh's Abominable Child. What kind of movie would we watch? And entire class. I have football at 11 to 12:30, after that is cool. You both really want to hang out with me? Or have I misinterpreted something and you just wanted to take Shimuru with you? But why would you use the plural of guy then? Am I stupid? Van Gogh's Abominable Child. Yes. And entire class, rude. Hydra Bomb. Nah, Shimuru is right, you're stupid, wouldn't I wanna hang with you, you're cool. Hydra Bomb. No, for real, you're cool. Hydra Bomb at Van Gogh's Abominable Child, the new endangered species MOV. And entire class, you're. Hydra Bomb. I take it back, you're uncool. Hydra Bomb, you're. And entire class. Smiley face. Van Gogh's Abominable Child. I don't like horror movies. Hydra Bomb. If you literally look like a horror movie char. Right, Kiwi? And entire class. She's right. Van Gogh's Abominable Child. Rude. Van Gogh's Abominable Child. I looked at the program. What about the one that starts at 4? Hydra Bomb. Twisted Twister? Yeah, why not? Hydra Bomb. Kiwi, you in? And entire class. Yeah, sure. Meet you guys at 15:40 in front of the cinema? Hydra Bomb. Yeah. Hydra Bomb. Imagine me yelling like Mike Sensei. And entire class. I don't want to have Mike Sensei in my head, thank you very much. Van Gogh's abominable child at entire. Class sounds good, Izuku-kun. I have to go now. Family calls. Entire. Class, bye. See you tomorrow. Hydrabomb. Yes, see you Shimiru. Hydrabomb. That rhymed. Hydrabomb. I'm so cool. Hydrabomb. Gonna go off as well cuz I have to feed my snake. Entire. Class, what? Hydrabomb. Not my ash snake lol. Hydrabomb. I have a real snake. Hydrabomb. Hiri her name is Sneck. Hydrabomb. Entire. Class. She's a cutie. Hydrabomb. Yeah, but she's clingy too. Hydrabomb. See you Kiwaboy. Entire. Class. See you. Izuku lowers his phone with a smile. He's never had this. Someone who gets him. Friends. Hell, even a group chat is an entirely new experience to him. When he was younger, he was invested in online chat rooms, but he couldn't bring himself to press send. He always deleted his messages. Man, they must have thought he was a malfunctioning bot or something. Writing like this, about things like meeting each other. It makes his heart ache, but in a very warm, very good way. As he lies there, with the beautiful feeling of a developing real friendship in his chest, he finally relaxes. He finally forgets. Lets himself forget. About that man. About that deer. Two crazy instances, nothing more, nothing less, now residing in a box in the back of his mind rather than in some dark corner, waiting to lunge at him like a predatory animal. He breathes and it's air filling his lungs instead of water. Izuku's smile widens.